Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Well, the Prime Minister triggers a fresh BBC row as he insists the state broadcaster backs Labour's inheritance tax raid.
With all the allowances in place, to pass it on to a child, it's a £3 million threshold. And all of you can check out what that means in terms of the impact. I think the BBC has already done it.
Over 10,000 people take to our streets to support rural communities, with Jeremy Clarkson rallying the crowds.
Labour's budget backlash doesn't stop there. The government admitting 100,000 extra pensioners could be in poverty because of winter fuel payment cuts.
And be sure to stay tuned as we bring you live inflation figures at 7 o'clock, and we'll be finding out what that means for you and your family.
Open the curtains, the snow's falling. Winter's come early and swathes of the country wake up to snowfall. How long will it last?
And as the number of restaurants that welcome dogs has doubled, this morning we'll be debating whether our furry four-legged friends should be banned from fine dining venues.
For crying out loud. And in sport this morning, Pep Guardiola has agreed to stay at Manchester City for at least another season. Wales beat Iceland 4-1 and Rafael Nadal waves goodbye to professional tennis.
Cold Arctic air has now swept south across the whole of the UK, but will we see any snow? And if so, where? I'll have the full details coming up soon in the forecast.
And on this Wednesday morning, a very good morning to you. I'm Eamonn Holmes.
I'm Isabel Webster, and this is GB News Breakfast.
Paul's in the mood for song today.
Oh, listen, there's a story that is going to fly under the radar, and it's a great musician who's passed away at the age of 87, and he got paid £6 for playing on a very famous piece of music, and his name was Vic Flick. Now, are you familiar with the late great Vic Flick?
No.
Vic Flick played for the John Barry Seven. Now, John Barry was very famous for...
the Bond's theme tune.
So Vic Flick was a guitarist, and he played... 6 quid. That was all he got.
No.
He got paid £6.
The world is so upside down sometimes, isn't it?
Isn't that crazy? So he was just a session musician. Can you just play this? Yeah, I'll give it a go. Oh, yeah, we like that. We'll keep it. £6 he got for it. And played loads of other songs, but that's the thing he's most famous for, Vic Flick, and he passed away yesterday, so 87.
Why are you telling us this?
Because you wouldn't have known otherwise. I just thought I'd let you know.
And has he just recently died?
Yesterday, yeah, died yesterday, yeah.
Oh. But he only did that. He didn't write it.
He did, well, no, he didn't write it.
No, why should he get any more than 6 quid?
Yeah, but blimey, I mean, if you would you walk around going, that's me, and then surely it's worth more than £6. Although there was an argument between John Barry and Monty Norman on who actually wrote it in the first place, and that was a huge court case that went on.
And it was based on some sort of Indian. It's
Caribbean, kind of Caribbean-y.
No, it was Indian.
Was it really?
Yeah.
That's right. So it sounded a bit like a sitar? Where did you get that from?
Yeah, yes,
really?
that could be it, yeah.
So it could have been Ravi Shankar instead of Vic Flick playing the theme from the James Bond. Well, there you go.
You finished now? Yeah.
That's it.
We're done. There we are. What have we got news-wise?
Well, over 10,000 people, young and old, took to the streets of London yesterday to protest against Rachel Reeves's inheritance tax raid on farmers.
Now, if Labour hoped that would be the end of the subject, they are sorely mistaken. Overnight, the Prime Minister raised eyebrows by suggesting the BBC has taken Labour's side in all of this.
For a typical family wanting to pass on through the family, which is a typical case, completely understood, then with all the allowances in place, to pass it on to a child, it's a £3 million threshold. And all of you can check out what that means in terms of the impact. I think the BBC has already done it.
Well, meanwhile, the Department for Work and Pensions has released new figures which show that up to 100,000 additional pensioners could be pushed into poverty thanks to winter fuel cuts.
So, is Rachel Reeves' budget shaping up to be the most controversial in history?
Well, the man with the answers this morning is The Spectator's political correspondent, James Hill. Good morning to you. Should we start by talking about those winter fuel allowance revelations? Because, you know, we all suspected that this was terrible news for pensioners. Now the government are admitting it from their own independent analysis. So why on earth are they pursuing it?
Well, I think there's a real sort of similarity between both these stories this morning. Both of these ideas have kicked around in the Treasury for years. Tory ministers say they blocked them for years. They're only expected to raise around £500 million each, and that's a very optimistic assessment about what they're going to raise. And now it seems that I think Labour on a new government has come in and thought, on paper, this sounds like a great idea, but, you know, very little times in history have we seen so much pain being inflicted for so little money being raised.
Well, unlike the impact assessment of the winter fuel allowance, the government are yet to publish what they suspect will be the impact of this inheritance tax raid, although the Prime Minister now advising us to all check out the BBC's research into this, appearing to endorse the state broadcaster as if they are supporting his policy.
Well, absolutely. I mean, this is why you go to the government, because you want to see the government's assessment of this rather than, say, you know, a media assessment of it. I also think if you go and read the BBC's own analysis, they also say in some senses that the farmer's right. So they say, for instance, that the Treasury figures are correct, but also that, you know, what the figures that the government are being criticised over are also correct as well. I think also it's quite clear to point out that DEFRA, which is the Environment Department, has a very different view on this to the Treasury. The Treasury are saying 22% of farms being affected. DEFRA are pointing to two-thirds, 66%. So the government is really at sixes and sevens, all of this. And I think that actually it's worth pointing that out when it comes to it. And the fact that Keir Starmer is now going to the BBC for credibility, I think indicates that actually the government has not got a good line worked out on this yet.
Well, there we go. And where do you think this is going to move on to with the farmers? I mean, Jeremy Clarkson and a number of... I mean, we were just commenting yesterday how eloquent all of these protesters were yesterday. They've said that they will continue pretty much to cause these protests unless Rachel Reeves sits down and talks with them.
They need to keep protesting if they want to actually have their voices heard. You've got the next budget in spring next year. They need to actually try and make this a point about saying we need more relief, whether that be in terms of looking at tax rate evaluations or in terms of DEFRA spending. So they need to do that. I also think it's going to be really important how you see the next 5 years shaping up, Isabel, because also everything's going to be seen through this prism, just like with the winter fuel. Everything that pensioners has done now is going to be seen through that lens. So I think that this is really important in terms of priorities and strategic and where we go from here.
And the bad news is likely to just keep coming if all the forecasters are right. At 7 o'clock, we're getting the Office for National Statistics' latest inflation figures. Now, the last time they came out, we dipped below the Bank of England's 2% target for the first time in a long time. Largely, I suppose, the Conservatives would argue because of the climate that they'd been working hard to produce, that Labour inherited, despite what Labour have been saying about black holes. But it's likely to go back above the target again, and that has an impact on interest rates and then mortgages. So, you know, how are they going to ride this one out today?
So politically, of course, if the Chancellor's winning, everyone loves a winner, they'll go along with it. But, you know, if the Chancellor's forecasts are going the other way, you're going to see more and more Labour MPs coming out. We've already seen one or two criticising the changes over the FOMs, for instance. I think everyone is up with Rachel Reeves if she's going to be doing well, but actually it's not been a great week for her. And, of course, after the Conservatives had that fairly, you know, consistent line on public sector pay restraint, the danger is for Labour is that actually they've U-turned on a lot.
Well, that's being credited as one of the reasons why we could be going back above the target, because of these inflation-busting payouts to public sector workers.
Absolutely, and then you also have things like the OBR's forecast for the next 5 years, and they're saying that as a result of spending 40 billion extra in the budget, you're going to see less growth in 5 years' time. So it's not going the way the Chancellor wants, and of course we saw those growth figures last week, which was 0.1%. So once again, it doesn't matter who you change the rosette on, no matter if it's Labour or Conservative, we have anemic growth in this country. Labour needs to do a lot to turn it around in 5 years' time. And I think after this, I'm not sure people think they'll do it.
So who is winning anywhere in all of this? I mean, Labour don't seem to be winning. The public aren't winning with this. Where are we standing with these extra tax raids that are happening? And who is benefiting? Is our black hole being filled in?
I think that the public sector are the ones who are winning from this. If you look at people who are sort of, say, in the NHS or schools, they're the ones who will be going home relatively happy about this. The key question, of course, Eamonn, is are we actually going to see any growth from that? The argument you'll hear from Labour ministers is, well, we're a sick country, we need to get better, we'll have better growth if we can have people being fixed and no longer on waiting lists. I'm not sure, first of all, we're going to see the efficiency we need in the NHS, that you're going to actually see these pay increases being matched consummately by the efficiency improvements we need. And second of all, I think the people that they're looking after, the people who voted for Labour. And the danger is, of course, everyone sees through the lens of, the farmers didn't vote for Labour, so therefore they're not going to get rewarded. The pensioners didn't vote for Labour, so they're not going to get rewarded. And I think that if you're talking the talk of national renewal, it's very dangerous to be seen as working in the sectional interest.
I think the public support for farmers is huge, isn't it? It's a very British thing, I think. It sort of represents the countryside that people hold dear. People want to be able to support our farmers and buy British. And a lot of the farmers saying this isn't just about inheritance tax. We're having a rough time anyway. There are wider issues in all of this. There's a lot of upset in the farming community. But this Labour government seems to be very sort of urban,
well, yes.
for want of a better word.
Around the cabinet table, most of the MPs think Keir Starmer, for instance, from a London seat, a lot of them from Leeds or Manchester seats. And there's a great line from The Economist magazine, which is, never pick a fight with a profession that can be depicted in a children's picture book.
Yes.
And farmers, people think evocative, they love their food. And actually, you saw yesterday, it was a real striking contrast, I think, with some of the protests we've seen in London in recent months. And afterwards, they did sort of like the Japanese football fans. They picked up all the litter, so there was not a single piece on litter as I was walking on Whitehall yesterday.
That's impressive. OK, James, thank you.
Thank you.
James, thank you very much indeed. And we're talking about, saving the NHS or whatever, but how much money will it take to save the NHS? And is it worth saving? What is the NHS spending money on that is just disappearing down that big black hole? Let us know what you think.
Yeah, is it so bad to U-turn as well? This government seems absolutely intent on never changing their mind, even if they're quite clearly doing something that's not only unpopular, but by their own impact assessments has devastating impact. So our question this morning, our poll of the day...
Are they like a Thatcherite government? That's the way they sort of seem to be applying all the rules. And there is a very conservative hue and tone from this government for a socialist government. Very, very strange workings. Should the government back down on what's happening to farmers' inheritance tax? Yeah,
we'll be bringing you the live results then of that poll. Jeremy Clarkson saying they should just back down. Do you agree? You can vote by going to gbnews.com/poll, and the results will be revealed, as always, in Martin Daubney's show, but we'll have a little sneak preview from our show just after 9 o'clock.
OK. What's it like where you are today? Certainly it'll be
chilly.
Cold, whether it's frosty, whether it's snowy. We're going to find out right now what it's like in certain parts of the country. We welcome into the studio our next guest, and he's going to tell you how it will affect you. And that is weather journalist Nathan Rao. Nathan.
I know it.
Good morning.
You've got a jacket on.
I know. I'm regretting my choice of outfit today, especially under this air conditioning. It's even cooler. Very, very, very cold. Minus 11.8 we have had in Scotland, but surprisingly, down on the other end of the country in Cornwall, plus 11. So a difference of 20 degrees C across the country.
Goodness me.
Yeah, because what we're in a northern Arctic, proper Arctic blast, what we describe as an Arctic blast, what the newspapers have described as an Arctic blast with the air coming right down from the North Pole, and that is going to stick with us all week.
Well, it's going to stick to anybody who's in the northeast of England and down that east coast, really.
That's the snow. Now, the cold air, which is, most of us are unhappy about the cold, bitter mornings and the frost and the ice. That is across the whole country. There are Met Office weather warnings for snow down the east coast, you're right, Eamonn, and also across Wales and also Scotland, and that lasts into tomorrow. The very, very cold air is going to last all the way through the week. There are no more weather warnings for snow at the moment. They may well evolve. The Met Office usually do pop out some more warnings as we go through these cold periods. At the moment, though, the cold weather warning lasts until midday today, and then we're clear. But there might be some more going through the week.
Nathan, there were so many schools closed yesterday, 140 in Wales, 50 in the Midlands, 20 in Derbyshire. Was Wales the worst affected by the snow, or are they just the quickest to close the doors to the school?
They were the first to be affected by the snow rather than the last to be affected by the snow. What we've got is we've got cold air over the UK, as I said, but we've also got something coming in from the Atlantic carrying moisture, and that comes into the west. Now, when the western air carrying moisture meets that cold air, which is where Wales is and where the northwest is, that is where you get the first snow, and as that low moves across the country to the eastern coast, that's where we're going to get the snow as it moves across the country. So Wales were really first in line.
Okay. Interesting. And will London get any more snow? Because we were on air yesterday when everyone was posting snowy pictures and I didn't get to enjoy any. And I'm childlike, like a lot of people. I still do like to see the odd
little flurry.
Snow.
Well, I was just speaking to one of our guests in the green room now, and they've got snow in Hampstead, apparently. I didn't have any where I am in south-east London this morning, and there's none here in Paddington. I don't think snow is going to be a big issue for London and sort of the mainland inside at the moment. It's more coastal regions, so maybe wait a bit later on for the year as well, and you might get some.
You talk about, snow being an issue, and I just thought back to my own days at school and counted up the amount of days that we had to take off because of snowfall.
Yeah.
And they were?
Zero.
Nil. Never
Same.
in my life.
I never missed a day because of snow.
Never in my life was I told not to come to school because of snow. And funny, those were days where people didn't have cars.
Yeah.
You put on your Wellington boots and you trudged through.
It was in a city, though. I wonder if rural areas it is tricky for some people, but that must be a tiny...
But I always remember we had the snow, even though we had to go to school with the snow, we always had the snow around Christmas time. Now we very rarely get snow around Christmas time. It's around Easter time we're starting to get snow now. I'm always being asked every year about White Christmases, and it's pretty much you're not going to get one.
Oh, well,
now.
then we've got to ask you.
Are we going to get White Christmas?
We're going to get White Christmas. You've teed that up.
Yeah, it's really is far too early to say, and I have got myself into trouble before by saying we're going to get White Christmases far too early on. At the moment, actually, the longer range outlook for the end of the year is milder and more Atlantic, and in fact, we're going to get at the end of this week, I imagine we're going to be talking about storms because there is a big stormy system coming in ahead of the weekend, and that seems to be what the picture is going through the end of the year.
Very windy on Saturday.
Yeah, windy and wet. This cold, snowy picture we've got at the moment is a bit of an anomaly, and then we're going back into Atlantic, wet and windy.
I think I prefer the snowy to the stormy. Do you? What do you think, Eamonn? Do you have a preference?
I think the schools are told too easy to close, and it's all about health and safety and whatever.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's probably any reason for any school to close.
No. I had to walk to school in foot-high snow, and no one mollycoddled me.
Oh, well, the young today.
I know.
Let us
See what I did there?
your stories. We appreciate that.
Yeah, not
Nathan,
only
for the moment,
stories.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Indeed, thank you.
Not just your stories, it's your pictures we're after. We had so many beautiful ones in yesterday. We'd like more of the same, please, today. It's always nice to see where our viewers are waking up to and what the scene is like. You send that to our email address, gbviews@gbnews.uk.
OK, let's bring you up-to-date news-wise as to what's happening. The time, 17 minutes past 6. And some breaking news. The American embassy has temporarily closed in Kyiv after getting intelligence of a potential air attack on the Ukrainian capital. Yesterday, Vladimir Putin made his strongest suggestion yet that Russia could be ready to start a nuclear war, with the threshold to use atomic weapons officially lowered.
The funeral of Liam Payne will take place today, with all 4 of his former One Direction bandmates expected to attend. The ceremony will be closed to the public, with family and friends paying their respects in a final farewell. And tonight, a world exclusive. Donald Trump's son, Eric, will be speaking to us. Our colleague Ben Leo has been in Aberdeen speaking to the president-elect's offspring at Donald's famous golf course. Have a listen.
Tariffs are normally in response to something. My father's not a guy who just wants to tariff people just for fun, right? And so I think it really is going to ultimately depend on the actions of various countries. And if true, free, and fair trade can be established, I think there's no one who would love it more than my father. Listen, I think my father generally likes free trade, but free trade has not been free, right? And so people like to hide behind the guise of the words free trade, but it's just the guise of cheap words. Again, it hasn't been free. And so as a country, we've been ripped off by everyone. The days of America being stupid are over. It won't happen. And so I think my father would love nothing better to have a great relationship with the UK. He adores this, this country. Hence the reason he's put hundreds of millions of dollars of his own money into building the greatest property on earth. There's no place in the world he'd rather have a great relationship with. I think he would love to see a great trade deal. I think he'd like to see a trade deal that reciprocated for both parties.
Does the behaviour of Labour activists, Labour MPs, would that stick in your father's mind when it comes to trade deals and tariffs?
Do I think that helps foreign relations? No, I don't think that helps foreign relations.
Just weeks after Donald Trump won the American election, Patrick Christys has that 9 o'clock only here on GB News.
Right, with this Arctic blast front and foremost in our minds, let's get an update on what the weather is doing where you are with Aidan McGibbon.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, a very good morning to you. Welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. It's a cold start out there for all of us with Arctic winds and some icy patches first thing, so watch out for those. But away from many wintry showers today, there'll be plenty of blue skies, beautiful weather despite the cold across much of the UK. However, with this northerly wind, it's areas that are exposed to the northerly where we'll continue to see showers during the day. So parts of North and Mid Wales, perhaps one or two spots in the southwest, the North Sea coast, the Irish Sea coast and northern Scotland where the snow will really build up and in some places temperatures will stay below freezing all day, particularly where we've got lying snow. And with clear skies overnight, those temperatures will drop away very quickly once again. Expect for parts of central and northern Scotland, temperatures to be at -10 or even lower in places, and we'll see further showers coming through for northern and western Scotland, parts of Northern Ireland into northwest England and West Wales. Whether those showers fall as rain, sleet or snow overnight, we're still likely to see some icy patches first thing Thursday, because under any clear skies we will see a widespread frost. So a chilly night to come, and for most it's a clear night, but we'll see some cloud building in the south and southwest, and then this feature arriving into the southwest by the start of Thursday, bringing some milder air, so the far southwest seeing 5 or 6 Celsius first thing, but elsewhere we've got the cold still in place and widely a sharp frost to wake up to on Thursday. But the main cause for concern on Thursday is this area of weather across the south and southwest, perhaps fringing into South Wales, and that could bring an awkward mixture of rain, sleet and snow at lower levels, with perhaps some significant lying snow over higher parts such as Dartmoor, even the mountains of South Wales. Elsewhere we keep the crisp sunshine, but it stays very cold.
Ooh, a chilly start will give way to a lovely warm afternoon. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Well, we're now going to look at the weather in the jungle. Hot but wet. And if you're loving I'm a Celeb this year so far, we're going to be talking to a veteran who can reveal the show's inside secrets, get in the analysis of it. And who do you fancy?
Do you know, I really like Talisa, actually. I think she comes across as quite a tough cookie. I think she's been through a lot, love her or loathe her. She seems quite sound. And I like your friend, the boxer, Barry McGuigan. He seems like a good lad. I like Danny a lot from McFly. He also seems a happy sort of soul.
And Dean.
Yeah, Dean's a legend. I really like Dean. Yeah, so there's lots I like.
Have to come.
What about you? Who's your favourite?
We're talking to Anthony Worrell Thompson, and he'll be telling us who his favourite is right after this.
It's Patrick Christys tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christys tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Sunday with Michael Portillo. from 11, only on GB News.
Phil Kearsey is bringing a new flavour to the Michelin-starred restaurant Pied à Terre as he becomes its new executive head chef. Customers can expect a menu that showcases modern British cooking, accompanied by classical French roots, which uses hyper-seasonal ingredients. What are hyper-seasonal ingredients? That's an interesting phrase.
It's more about just reacting to the seasonality of everything. We like to change the menu all the time. So basically, I surround myself with the best suppliers, and they tell me what's amazing at the moment, and then we try and celebrate that in the restaurant in many different forms, using taste, texture, and technique, and just try and celebrate something as humble as a broccoli stem or a cauliflower, using absolutely everything, and making sure we've got an ever-changing menu. So letting the seasons dictate, so it's never boring and we never get menu fatigue.
OK, your career has taken you around the world a bit.
Yeah.
For example, you were in the United States. What did you learn there?
So, well, every chef I've worked for, it's about to take something from. A lot of chefs will go places and just stay in one establishment and get to the top, and then that's it. I've kind of then went to another chef to learn completely different things. Well, that's the brilliant thing, to be able to surround myself with such amazing chefs throughout my career, because I've learned different things from all of them. And you find out 5 different ways to do something, and you find the way that you like it the best. And it's also about understanding it takes a while to understand how the restaurant is, going through the history of all these amazing chefs that have been before me, the style, because it needs to make sense. You wouldn't have a dish that should be at the Fat Duck and then a dish that should be at the Waterside, you know. You need to make sure that it all makes sense and it goes together with the decor, the service, the wine serving. And so we want to be the restaurant, not that does a little bit of everything, we want to be the best French restaurant in London, you know.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about?
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Well, I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here reached its 3rd day, and one celebrity has already quit a trial.
Yes, the Northern Irish radio presenter Dean McCulloch has become the first of the series to say the infamous words,
I'm a celeb, get me out of here.
Let's start a show that makes you laugh as much as I'm laughing at somebody's quite clear distress. But it is so funny.
Yeah,
it is.
Especially since it wasn't overly dangerous. There wasn't anything.
No.
It was just the sand that was coming in. It was up above his knees, and he didn't want to come in any further. But one man who knows all about those trials and tribulations and what goes on, celebrity chef, former contestant on the programme in 2003, seems like yesterday.
Gosh.
We say good morning to Anthony Worrell Thompson.
Morning, guys. Morning.
Hello.
Well, does it make you all nostalgic? Do you miss the jungle looking at that?
I do, actually. I mean, it was one of the highlights of my career. I really enjoyed it because I'm like a little boy. I love being outdoors and taking the mick and arguing, and I love all that, you know, so that's what it's all about. It's so much emotional stuff because food plays so much a part in being in the jungle, and it really gets your sort of mental bits going, you know. It is I would love to go back. I mean, maybe there's a show called Geriatrics in the Jungle. I think that might be a good one. Didn't have any sort of major luxuries at all.
And did you ever have to shout those immortal words, I'm a celebrity, get me out of here?
No, I didn't. I think Daniela Westbrook was the only one who bottled out. Most of us stuck it to the end, well, as far as the end as we could get. It was, we had something called the Terrible Trio. It was me, Phil Tufnell, and Linda Barker. And we were the late night drinkers and smokers in those days. Yeah, we just took the mick out of everything, really. Tried to liven it up. I led a revolt, about a great sausage revolt, where we all charged into the production office, and that we were the cause of them having to put the drawbridge in subsequently every other year.
Yeah, watching Dean there in that esophagus or whatever it was he was in, What did you feel about the sand coming up to his knees? Now, to a lot of the rest of us, we would look and would say, what was the main danger there? But it was...
Show this guy, Dean, who we're watching now, they were having to eat, I don't want to use the word at this hour of the morning, but part of a male anatomy combined with some eyeballs mushed up into a smoothie.
Yeah.
And he was drinking it. He said, my IBS! My IBS! And we were just laughing.
Play havoc with
It's so weird, isn't it, that we find that so funny?
It is weird. I mean, I suppose we like to see people's pain, and especially if perhaps we don't like someone on the show, we really want them to suffer, which is a nasty side to all of us. I mean, I'm looking at the two. I don't really watch it much now because it does make me want to go back there. But I'm looking at the two Barrys, Barry McGuigan and 2K Barry as my sort of favourites, if you want.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. Big contenders, those two would be. Anthony, well done. Thank you very much indeed. Nice talking to you again.
I wanted to ask you a quick question. We're doing a debate on the programme this morning about whether or not four-legged friends should be banned from fine dining because the number of restaurants allowing dogs has doubled, apparently. Where do you stand on this? I think Gordon Ramsay's even letting them into his eateries now.
Well, our pub, we used to have a pub near Henley called the Greyhound. We had two separate areas. I think that's fine. If you've got one area, you can say that's dog-friendly area, and then you've got an area where the guests don't have to suffer the dogs. But I personally am a big pet lover, so more the merrier for me.
There we go. Good stuff.
Thanks, Anthony.
Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers. Take care.
Thank you. A lot of people do have feelings one way or the other about that, letting dogs into restaurants. Doesn't affect me at all. I wouldn't care.
I think Ricky Gervais had it on the nose when he said, look, if there's kids allowed to chuck food and scream and shout in restaurants, why can't my dog sit quietly under the table? He's kind of got a point. I don't really mind, If they're badly behaved, children or dogs, get them out.
Well,
that's my view.
A lot of people are germ phobics. I mean, they do think that dogs, and they may well be, I don't know, just crawling with various germs and things, places they've stuck their nose, and they don't want them around their dinner table like that. I mean, our local pub did ban dogs, and you know what? Truthfully, lost our custom.
Yeah.
Not out of protest. It just was, if we go out, one of the ways you want to share your day is with your animal.
Yeah.
And so they decided no dogs. We decided no restaurant.
No pub. There you go.
Yeah, that was it. OK, final week of the Christmas giveaway. We're on the countdown to Christmas Day itself, and you could win
£25,025 in tax-free cash, shopping vouchers and a GB News Christmas gift. But make sure you enter because time's running out.
There's just 35 days until Christmas, and it's the final week to see how you could enjoy it on us. That's £20,025 in tax-free cash to make 2025 fantastic. £5,000 to spend on gifts for all of the family. £500 in vouchers to buy a slap-up Christmas lunch at your favourite supermarket. And finally, a GB News Christmas goodie bag. Plus, we're going to get it all to you in time for the big day. For another chance to win, call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Or post your name and number to GB09 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on Friday. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Murray, the A941 is closed each way between Fogwart and Rothes because of snow. In the Highland, the A82 is closed each way where a lorry jackknifed between Drumland Drocket and Inverness. On the M5 in Gloucestershire, there are 2 lanes closed southbound, a mile before junction 12, the Quedgley and Hardwick turn, after an accident. There's a queue of about a mile each way towards there. In London, the A20 is closed each way along Lewisham Way in New Cross after an accident. A number of buses are having to divert. On the M2 in Kent, the eastbound exit at junction A3, the Chatham and Rochester turn, is closed after an accident. In Devon, the A377 is closed because of a fallen tree outside Kings Nympton Station, and hover travel sailings to and from the Isle of Wight are suspended between Southsea and Ryde, and that's because of a technical problem. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment. This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory. Don't miss My Big Opinion. Mark Meets and My Take at 10. Democracy is a funny old thing. And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it. Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it. That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Here's Paul, and he's got the latest update on the sport. Nations Cup in football. I think that's a very good win for Wales last night against Iceland.
Yeah, 4-1 against Iceland. Because Craig Bellamy is now the Wales manager. Unbeaten in 6 games in charge. So it's worked really well. People thought he was going to be a bit hot-headed and a bit troublesome, like he was when he was a player, but he's done extremely well. So this is the last time we're going to talk about the Nations League. This is the last bit, but they're going up now into the top tier in the Nations League, all thanks to Montenegro, who beat Turkey, which was a bit of a surprise yesterday. Now, the good thing about the Nations League is that it helps teams that don't qualify immediately into the World Cup. They then stand an extra chance of qualifying for the World Cup. So if you're in the World Cup qualifying, you're in the top 2, you go forward. But if you haven't quite managed that and you did quite well in the Nations League, then you will go into a playoff, which gives you another chance of getting into the World Cup.
OK.
OK, so there you go. So in other words, Northern Ireland, if they don't actually manage to qualify for the World Cup, they look like they'll get another shot, so they'll get a playoff game to get into the World Cup, which is great news.
Yeah.
Good news.
Which is good.
Pep Guardiola, all the talk is that he has signed a new contract at Man City, maybe for as long as a year.
At the most, yeah. Khaldoon El Mubarak, who is the big boss there, he went over to see him in Abu Dhabi last month, and the word is that he's agreed to stay for another year. Now, we know about these charges against Manchester City, 112 charges, and thinking, is that going to force his hand? So should anything happen to Man City, is he going to want out? Well, he's agreed to sign for another year, which will see him to the end of next season, which will be 10 years in charge. I mean, and for a manager these days, to be 2 years in charge of a club is some going, but when you're him, I mean, can you imagine? He probably goes in and they say, what do you want? OK, well, I'll put another 6 noughts on the end, and then maybe I'll stick around. They've got the money, he wants it, and he's
got
super
the
successful.
reputation.
Absolutely, he can go anywhere he wants. So all very good for him.
OK, we were talking earlier this week about the Billie Jean King Cup and Britain's involvement in it.
Told you, didn't I? Mm-hmm. Said yesterday, you know, we get through, they beat Germany, beat Canada, get to the semi-finals of the Billie Jean King Cup, playing Slovakia, and I just think it's the sort of thing that we do here. You know, it's like, yeah, you get there and you think, this is it, all we've got to do is get past this one and we'll be in the final, first time since 1981. So Emma Raducanu does well, she wins, so that was good. And Katie Boulter lost, so then it goes to doubles, and instead of Katie Boulter maybe playing... Or Emma Raducanu playing in the doubles. They didn't. It was Heather Watson and Olivia Nichols lost 6-2, 6-2, and then we're out to Slovakia, and that's it. So very disappointing.
Very disappointing.
Disappointing.
And disappointing to see Nadal bowing out of tennis after all these years.
Yeah, that was it. It was. See, this is the other thing, is that they're playing in the Davis Cup, Spain, and they're playing in the Netherlands. So you would expect Spain to get through. So they played Rafa Nadal. He played, I know, Eamonn, your favourite tennis player, Botic van der Zandschulp. From, I know you're a big fan of his.
Yes.
And he lost to him, which meant that probably Spain are out of the Davis Cup because Rafa Nadal lost to the world number 80. But
where's Alcaraz?
But Alcaraz did play, but he won his singles game, but then he lost in the doubles afterwards. But anyway, it was all very emotional. Let's hear from Rafa Nadal. This is him on court speaking to the crowd after the game.
From a small village in Mallorca that I had the luck that I had my uncle that was a tennis coach in my village when I was a very, very small kid, and I had a great family that had the chance to support me in every single moment. No, just a kid that follow their dreams, worked as hard as possible to be where I am today. And at the end of the day, being honest, a lot of people work hard, a lot of people tries their best every single day, but I am one of these that I have been very lucky that the life gave me the opportunity to live unforgettable experiences because of tennis. No? So I just want to be remembered as a good person and a kid that followed their dreams and achieved more than what I ever dreamed.
As a good person.
Absolutely.
He will be, absolutely.
One of the greats. Good. Federer wrote about him, wrote a tweet about him, and everybody's, you know, very cut up about it. But now on to the new guard that's going to take over.
OK.
Right. Thank you,
so we've got nobody to take over from you at 7:20, so you'll be back.
I will be, yes.
Good lad.
Well, unless I decide to retire. I'll see how things go.
You'll be remembered as one of the good
I'll be remembered as
ones.
a humble person. I remember growing up in Haroldwood in Essex in those early days.
Be like Pep and just sign another year.
That's what I'll do.
We'll do. We've got the papers. They're coming up next.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Headliners. Tomorrow's papers tonight, every night from 11 p.m.
The Daily Mail now, Josh, and pub landlords have to worry about more than the optics when it comes to offensive banter,
Yeah,
it
this
seems.
is a really big story and important. Pub landlords could have to become banter cops to stop themselves being sued by staff offended by comments from customers under workers' rights reform. So, Labour, when they were part of their election process, they were like, we're going to reform workers' rights, and that all sounds good on paper, but there were issues in terms of how might it affect employees and fear from employees costing them more money. One of these things that they're sort of pushing through, though, is that in the Equality Act of 2010, part of the issue was that if you were offended at work or someone said something sexist or racist, something that affected you, the employer had to take some sort of, they had three chances to kind of take action.
Yeah.
Now, the employer has to should have taken action already. So employees can sue employers. Now, this has a big impact on us because we're comics and we perform in venues. And if some of the bar staff hear a joke that they don't like, then they can sue their employer, potentially, under this legislation.
So it's not punters?
Well, also, it could be like you're at a bar and some bloke is like, oh, I like that top, or whatever. That's not good behaviour. But the point is now that employee could sue their employer.
So, because, I mean, the sort of scenario I was imagining was that a barmaid was being maybe sexually harassed or
That's
something.
what they're focusing in this article, but other articles have gone down the free speech route. Okay. And also venues and universities having lectures. We saw it at, in Edinburgh Fringe Festival and Sadowitz. He had a show cancelled not because of any punters, but because two of the 18-year-olds were working. They were upset.
There was a bar in Brighton, wasn't there? There was a story we covered a few weeks ago. A bar in Brighton threw some people out. Because
exactly. They had turfs on the.
Turfs. Yeah.
GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking... This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We say hello, good morning, and welcome to Dr. Rennie Honderkamp and former Liberal Democrat Minister Norman Baker, and they've got the papers ahead of us. Guys, could I begin by asking you what Keir Starmer was getting at yesterday, what he was playing at, suggesting that the BBC has backed him over the inheritance tax raid on farmers. Norman.
Well, this has been made into a story in the Telegraph saying that the BBC is biased. I don't think it is. BBC's got a unit called BBC Verify, which is there for a very good reason, to try to get the truth out in terms of numbers in any particular situation, because people make wild accusations on either side, and you have a unit there which is full of professional people trying to assess what the facts are. Now, I don't know whether the BBC is right on this or whether it isn't right, but the numbers on farmers affected, which is a story which is in the papers, varies wildly from, I think, 462 farms worth more than £1 million, which is the BBC Verify has come up with, and 70,000 farms, which the NFU's come up with. Now, I don't know which one of those is right, but there's a big difference between the two of them. But I think it's wrong to say that the BBC is biased. It's done its best to come up with a figure. It may be a wrong figure, but the argument in the Telegraph is that the PM has unwisely, in my view, pulled the BBC into this story.
To be clear, the Prime Minister said what the BBC have done their sums and looked into it, and I urge you all to do the same. So it wasn't necessarily saying take the BBC's assessment. He was saying do your own assessment. But do you think this was overreach, Renee?
Look, I think it's overreach. I agree with Norma that I don't think that the Prime Minister should have even mentioned the BBC. I think it's irrelevant.
He retweets the BBC a lot as well.
He does.
Yeah.
I do think it's quite interesting, Norman, that you say in one breath, the BBC have got Verify to absolutely get the truth out, and then say, but I don't know if it's true.
Well, I don't know if it's right. I don't know whether they made the correct calculation.
So, one man's truth is another man's fiction. And actually, I think...
Well, you don't think there's anything that is just universally a fact?
Well, none of these are a fact because it involves numbers, it involves inheritance, it involves whether there's two partners, whether there's one partner, what order they die in, whether or not some of it has already been gifted on. It is such a complex situation. There was a farmer explained yesterday that actually he had to go and seek independent advice because it's just much more complicated than, well, if there are two of you, it's £3 million. It just isn't, it doesn't work like that. And I think that the BBC coming down on the side of the government demonstrates their inherent bias.
I don't think they've come down the side of the government. They've made a calculation which may or may not be correct. And I agree with you that the whole matter is rather complicated for the reasons you've just set out. But they haven't come down the side of the government. They've produced a figure which the government is using to justify their position, which is not the same thing.
Well, I'll ask you two, whose side do you come down on in this whole debate?
Well, I'm very clear the government's made a mistake in going down this route, in attacking family farms, which is what they're doing. I think it's a bad mistake. I think they've lost a lot of political capital out of it. They've gained nothing from it. The amount of money is actually minuscule in Treasury terms, 200 million or something a year. I mean, Treasury terms, that's nothing. So they've scored their own goal on this basis. But, you know, farmers have had a rough time. The consequence of Brexit, I have to say, it's been very bad for farmers. There's that Australian trade deal which has been signed, which has crucified a number of farmers. If we get an American trade deal, that will be chlorinated chicken and everything else coming from the States, hormone beef. It will damage the farming industry all the more.
Weather as well. I mean, the wettest September since records began. An absolute disaster for our food security. And I suppose, will this affect the poorest in society at the end of the day when we see prices rise in the shops and people worried about whether or not they can afford to eat?
Yes, 100%. And I support the farmers wholeheartedly. And if there are food shortages because of what they do, go for it, because in the short-term pain, we may realise how important our food security is. Farming has not been very profitable even prior to Brexit and was only held up by EU subsidies, which have not properly been replaced. And that's a whole nother conversation. We need to realise that actually the supermarkets are the only people winning in the food battle here.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Yeah, our farmers are being bled to death, we're being bled to death, and in between, the food supermarkets are making a fortune, and we need to reset this.
They are making a fortune, and no one ever turns around and says, they're doing OK, they're just scraping, they're just getting by.
Our profit margins are so low.
They are making an absolute fortune, as are their executives.
Yes, and the other thing about supermarkets is that when you look at what they're doing, they're taking away staff from the tills. We're supposed to be serving ourselves now, putting our own stuff through, scaling our own stuff. It won't be long before we're unloading the lorries.
What this story has also exposed to me is the fact, as Jeremy Clarkson openly said, he bought this farm because it meant he would have to pay less inheritance tax. Are they actually, as a government, going after these people that put their land into trusts? Because my understanding is they're going to be totally untouched by this. Surely the government needs to U-turn on this, what's been seen, frankly, as a cruel policy to family farmers, and pursue unpicking these trusts where these super wealthy, often foreign individuals or city bankers that don't understand rural life.
I totally agree with you. They're never going to unpick trusts. So I think that's part. They're not, Isabel. They're just not. It's too complex. But if people have bought farms that are not being used as farms, it's very easy to ascertain whether a farm is a working farm or not. And if it's a working farm that's been run by families, then obviously we shouldn't do this, because it doesn't matter if they've got 10 years to pay it off with no interest. If they've got to sell some of the farm each time to do that, the farm gets smaller and is unsustainable.
Yes. OK. And I would just say in this country we've got a situation where family farms are now being subject to inheritance tax. I might just say when the Queen died, there was no inheritance tax paid by Prince Charles on what he inherited.
Yeah, and Kemi Badenoch writing about this in the Express today. If we don't have a next generation of farmers, there will be no future for farming. Now, Norman, let's talk about the winter fuel payment and the repercussions of it as well. So there's the farming row and there's the winter fuel payments.
Well, here's another own goal, isn't it, from the government? I have to say, I mean, they're burning through their goodwill for the election at a rate of knots. They really are. I mean, what a terrible first few months they've had. Incompetent in terms of management, in terms of news management, apart from anything else. Look, there is an argument, in my view, for looking at winter fuel payments being made to people who are very rich pensioners, if you handle that properly, including those who are living in Spain, for example, who are getting winter fuel payments. But the way they've done it has been to extend the net far too far into people who really should be protected. But secondly, also, I mean, in terms of news management, you know, bring back Alistair Campbell is what they should be saying for their own purposes. For their own purposes. Because, you know, if you're going to do something like this, you wrap it up in a policy of a number of different things which are positive, not announce it on its own.
On the day that snow arrives.
Indeed.
Norman, Rennie, for the moment, thank you very much indeed. Your views on what they've had to say so far, because they will be back in 40 minutes' time. Let us know and have your say.
Yeah, we're going to have a look at the forecast now. Here's Aidan McGibbon.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, a very good morning to you. Welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. It's a cold start out there for all of us, with Arctic winds and some icy patches first thing, so watch out for those. But away from many wintry showers today, there'll be plenty of blue skies, beautiful weather despite the cold across much of the UK. However, with this northerly wind, it's areas that are exposed to the northerly, where we'll continue to see showers during the day. So parts of North and Mid Wales, perhaps 1 or 2 spots in the southwest, the North Sea coast, the Irish Sea coast, and northern Scotland, where the snow will really build up, and in some places temperatures will stay below freezing all day, particularly where we've got lying snow. And with clear skies overnight, those temperatures will drop away very quickly once again. Expect for parts of central and northern Scotland temperatures to be at -10 or even lower in places, and we'll see further showers coming through for northern and western Scotland, parts of Northern Ireland into northwest England and West Wales. Whether those showers fall as rain, sleet or snow overnight, we're still likely to see some icy patches first thing Thursday, because under any clear skies we will see a widespread frost. So a chilly night to come, and for most it's a clear night, but we will see some cloud building in the south and southwest, and then this feature arriving into the southwest by the start of Thursday, bringing some milder air. So the far southwest seeing 5 or 6 Celsius first thing, but elsewhere we've got the cold still in place and widely a sharp frost to wake up to on Thursday. But the main cause for concern on Thursday is this area of weather across the south and southwest, perhaps fringing into South Wales, and that could bring an awkward mixture of rain, sleet and snow at lower levels, with perhaps some significant lying snow over higher parts such as Dartmoor, even the mountains of South Wales. Elsewhere we keep the crisp sunshine, but it stays very cold.
We can expect clear skies, leading to a light and warm day ahead. Lovely. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Murray, the A941 is closed each way between Fogwat and Rothers because of snow. The A1 in Tyne and Wear is closed southbound from junction 69 at the Dunstan interchange to 65 at Bertley, where overnight roadworks have overrun. Same story on the M53 in Cheshire. That's closed northbound from junction 10 at Little Stanley to 7 at Overpool. And the M6 in the West Midlands closed northbound from junction 7 for the A34 in Birmingham to 10 the Alton Wolverhampton turn, causing queues. On the M5 in Gloucestershire, 2 lanes are closed southbound a mile before junction 12, the Quedgley and Hardwick turn after an accident causing queues. In London, the A20 is closed each way along Lewisham Way in New Cross after an accident. On the M2 in Kent, the eastbound exit at junction 3, the Chatham and Rochester turns closed after an accident, and hover travel sailings to and from the Isle of Wight are suspended between Southsea and Ryde because of a technical problem.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
This is the final week to grab your chance to win Christmas on Us this year. There's £20,025 in tax-free cash. There's £5,000 to spend on gifts for all the family. There's £500 to spend in your favourite supermarket. And a festively themed GB News goodie bag. We'll get it all to you in time for the big day. For another chance to win, call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2, or post your name and number to GB09 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 22nd of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. The Prime Minister triggers a fresh BBC row as he's insisted that the broadcaster has backed his own inheritance tax raid on farmers.
With all the allowances in place, to pass it on to a child, it's a £3 million threshold. And all of you can check out what that means in terms of the impact. I think the BBC has already done it.
Over 10,000 people took to the streets to support rural communities, with broadcaster Jeremy Clarkson rallying the crowds.
Labour's budget backlash doesn't stop there, with the government admitting 100,000 extra pensioners could be in poverty thanks to winter fuel payment cuts.
The latest inflation figures are released. We'll be bringing you those in a matter of seconds, and this is how quickly it is. Inflation stands at 2.3%. That is up from 1.7. More analysis of that very shortly.
Snow is falling. Winter comes early as swathes of the country wake up to it. How long will it last, though?
And as the number of restaurants welcoming dogs doubles, this morning we'll debate whether our furry friends should be allowed in or banned from dining venues.
I would never take Dudley to anywhere, I tell you. And in sport this morning, Pep Guardiola has agreed to stay at Manchester City for at least another season. Wales beat Iceland 4-1 and Rafa Nadal waves goodbye to professional tennis.
Cold Arctic air has now swept south across the whole of the UK, but will we see any snow? And if so, where? I'll have the full details coming up soon in the forecast.
Very good to see you on this Wednesday morning. You're very welcome. I'm Eamonn Holmes.
I'm Isabel Webster, and this is GB News Breakfast. All that frosty weather has been a bit problematic for you, Coity, hasn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Tell us about your windscreen, because it sounds a bit alarming.
It's a bit stupid because, you know, have you ever had where you get the stone hits the windscreen, you get that little mark?
You've got to deal with that straight away.
Yeah, I know that now.
You did, didn't you?
OK, so that was about 2 or 3 months ago, and I've just had this thing on there, and I thought, oh, that's going to be OK. So in the cold weather, as I was driving home yesterday, then it just went, you know, when you see a nice, like, little line, this morning, got in the car, and of course, turned the heating up full because it was all iced up, and as I'm driving along, I heard crack.
Oh, my goodness.
And it's moving.
Did you start thinking the whole windscreen was going to fall in?
Yeah.
So you're going to get that sorted?
Well, yeah. Well, actually, I've tried to do it.
Yeah.
Next Wednesday. As soon as we can do it next Wednesday. So is my windscreen... Is this dangerous?
No, it means lots of people are getting cracks.
Exactly.
That's what I'd say.
But it's all come from that little... where the stone hits it, and so there's a line, and it's getting bigger and bigger. Is it... It's not going to... Is it?
It is.
Is it?
It needs fixing.
So there's a chance that it's going to fall in on me as I'm driving along.
Especially if you're going down a motorway at great speed or anything.
Right,
like that.
with my heating on full while it's 0
bad.
degrees outside.
It's bad.
OK.
All right.
Well, anyway, it's nice being with you.
Be careful.
OK, I will.
Right, let's start with that breaking news that we've just had in the last few moments. The Office for National Statistics have reported a sharp rise in inflation from 2.3% in the 12 months to October this year, up from 1.7 in September. It's another blow to Labour's budget, adding to that backlash, and we'll be discussing it throughout the morning here.
OK. Over 10,000 people, young and old, took to the streets of London yesterday to protest against the inheritance tax raid from the government on farmers.
Well, if Labour hoped that that would be the end of it, they were mistaken overnight. The Prime Minister raised a few eyebrows by suggesting that the BBC has supported the government on this.
For a typical family wanting to pass on through the family, which is a typical case, completely understood, then with all the allowances in place, to pass it on to a child, it's a £3 million threshold. And all of you can check out what that means in terms of the impact. I think the BBC has already done it.
And in another blow, Work and Pensions independent research has showed that the winter fuel payment cuts will affect 100,000 additional pensioners, pushing them into poverty.
Is Rachel Reeves' budget shaping up to be the most controversial in history? That is the question. Let's speak to the Spectator's political correspondent, James Heal. Are they just unlucky on this, or was this an accident always waiting to happen?
Obviously, it depends on who you talk to. The Tories are going to come out today and say, look, these inflation figures show that, unlike the restraint that Rishi Sunak had on the public finances, basically by giving these inflation-busting pay rises, Rachel Reeves has encouraged an inflationary spiral. I think it's a mix of poor timing. I think also it's about the UK has fundamental problems in the economy right now, hence why we have 0.1% growth, hence why we have these figures out today. But also politics about choices. And I think that what's going to be so damaging for this government is that for the next 5 years, everything will be seen through the lens of their initial choices, which include, of course, winter fuel and the farmers. And I suppose my counter to what the government's saying would be, was it worth it for all that pain? I was there yesterday, 10,000 angry farmers shouting, booing, calling all sorts of names.
Even at you,
no. I mean, hopefully it wasn't at me, because, I mean, they looked quite angry. But all that for £500 million, which in government finances is nothing.
Yeah, and people talk a lot about political capital. Norman Baker was just saying, in his view, this has just been a total waste of goodwill so early on in the electoral cycle. But there is a school of thought, isn't there? I suppose the method to their madness might be, and this would probably be what Rachel Reeves would argue, get the pain out the way early and then show that this has worked, if indeed it does. And by the time it comes to the election again, people will be able to see that it was worth it.
That is very much the calculation they're making, and they're saying things like, look, farmers will enjoy the NHS in 5 years' time, it's all going to pay out, and actually, we actually have things like a long waiting list backlog in this country, that will come down, and therefore they will reward us in 5 years' time. The counter to that, of course, is you look at, say, the inflation figures out today. If all the money that you're putting into the NHS, not 22 billion, is being frisked away on, say, inefficiency and inflation, that means they're not going to see any kind of improvement in their services. And people will remember what Labour did 4 months into government. Of course, this was their first budget, this was their choice, and Keir Starmer spent an enormous amount of time trying to win over those rural seats, went there last year to the NFU conference and was promising a partnership, etc. And, of course, I think that you talked to the farmers yesterday, partnership was the last word on their lips.
It really is shocking, this winter fuel allowance impact assessment, that 100,000 extra pensioners by 2027 will be living in relative poverty and 50,000 in absolute poverty, which means they'll struggle to cover their daily needs, which include food, shelter, sanitation and healthcare under a Labour government.
Well, quite. And, of course, it was a Labour Chancellor who brought it. It was Gordon Brown who brought in winter fuel. And I think that if you talk to Labour MPs, some of them who are very new, of course, more than half the parliamentary party is now new intake, they've been struck by how much correspondence. And, of course, famously, pensioners are the most active. They write. They also, rather than have sort of a generic campaign email, they will write tear-jerkingly in hands using the King's head on the stamp, and they will be talking about this. And as I say, Isabel, I mean, I'm not sure for £500 million, which is less than a day's spending of the NHS, it was worth doing this, given how evocative it was. And the name of it, winter fuel, people think instantly of that image of pensioners. Of course, Labour would counter by saying, you know, 1 in 4 pensioners now on paper a millionaire. But the key thing, of course, is asset rich but income poor. And how do you square that circle? And Labour haven't got an answer on that, I don't think.
OK, James Hill, thank you.
James, got to say thank you, and we'll leave it there. We have got the Shadow Home Secretary, Chris Philp, I'm delighted to say, standing by, and we can talk to him this morning. Chris, good morning.
Good morning, Eamonn.
I know we've got lots to talk about, but briefly, what did you think of how the farming protest went yesterday?
Well, I was out there with colleagues supporting our nation's farmers. They obviously feel, you know, really, really strongly about this. I mean, years ago, my grandfather was a small farmer, and, you know, people risk losing land they farmed for generations. These farmers are not making very much money. They don't make a great deal of cash running a farm these days. And you know what? It's going to affect all of us, because food prices will go up as a result of Labour's vindictive attack on our nation's farmers. So I stand with them and will do everything I can to protect them from what Labour are doing. They're going to undermine our food security, they're going to put our prices up, and they're going to drive farmers off the land.
Breaking news this morning about the inflation figures, up from 1.7% in the 12 months to September to 2.3%. That's a sharp increase and above the Bank of England target of 2%.
It's a huge increase, and I think it's caused by the inflation-busting pay rises that Labour has been handing out to their trade union paymasters. Those pay rises are obviously inflationary, as we warned, and indeed as we saw when the Labour government in the 1970s did exactly the same thing. It's also, I think, because businesses have seen these swinging tax rises that Labour have put through, you know, things like that massive national insurance increase, which broke Labour's manifesto promise. And businesses are, I expect, putting up prices in anticipation of those enormous pay rises. In fact, we saw dozens of retailers warning about exactly this just a couple of days ago, and here we see it in the inflation figures. People, including working people, up and down the country are now going to be feeling today in their pocket the effects of this Labour government already. And it's going to get, and the OBR forecast, it's going to get worse. It's an inflationary budget.
Yeah, and when you hear Rachel Reeves saying farmers have got to do their bit to pay for the NHS, you would suggest that their money's going in lots of different directions, and the NHS is the least of their worries, I suppose.
Well, money is... people are now having to pay higher prices for everyday items because of the decisions this Labour government has made in just the last few months. This is not an accident that inflation has jumped up. It's a consequence of what this Labour government has done, and it's particularly galling because in government we spent quite a long time in the last 2 years battling to get inflation down. There was obviously globally high inflation a couple of years ago. We got it under control, and Labour have made a load of bad decisions in the last few months that are now putting inflation back up. And that means every single one of your viewers, every single one, is paying today higher prices as a result of decisions that Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer have made. And actually, you know what? Inflation affects the NHS as well. So the NHS, police forces, schools, they're all going to be paying higher prices as well for the things that they buy to run the NHS. So it's bad for the NHS as well as being bad for you and me and every single one of your viewers.
Chris, whilst we've been speaking, the government have just published their response to this sharp increase in inflation, and Chief Secretary to the Treasury, Darren Jones, has said, we know families across Britain are still struggling with the cost of living. This is why the budget last month focused on fixing the foundation of our economy so we can deliver change, including boosting the national minimum wage, freezing fuel duty and protecting working people's pay slips from higher taxes. Your reaction to that?
Well, it's absolute nonsense. They've made decisions that have unleashed higher inflation unnecessarily, and far from helping working people. The budget a couple of weeks ago has clobbered everybody, including working people, with massive tax rises. I think it was, £40 billion worth of tax rises, something like that. Which is going to affect everybody. And the OBR themselves said that national insurance increase, they said 3/4 of that national insurance increase would basically be funded by working people in the form of lower wages. So we've now got a double whammy, haven't we? We've got a double whammy of massive tax rises that are going to hit all of us, including working people. And now we've got this second double whammy today of higher inflation as well. So we're getting hammered on all fronts by this Labour government after just 4 months.
One of those whammies. Just this headline from the front of the Eye today, and it says an extra 100,000 pensioners in poverty after the winter fuel cut. I mean, that's pretty drastic, isn't it?
It's terrible, and 100,000 pensioners driven into poverty by this winter fuel decision the Labour government have made is terrible. Obviously, I voted against it. Conservatives voted against it for precisely this reason. And of course, that impact assessment you just read out, the Labour government hid that during the vote. When we voted on this a few weeks ago, they deliberately did not publish that impact assessment. They hid it from Parliament and hid it from their own MPs, who the government were trying to hoodwink into, they successfully hoodwinked them into voting for this terrible measure. And the fact that they're taking winter fuel payment away from almost every pensioner, driving 100,000 into poverty, is even worse when we now discover this morning inflation is on the way up as well. So it's a triple whammy.
Now, I know that you want to talk this morning about non-crime hate incidents. I was reading in the Times newspaper that the country's Director of Public Prosecutions, a post that Sir Keir Starmer used to hold, Stephen Parkinson, he himself had to look up what this term meant, because in all the furore last week surrounding Alison Pearson and her visit from the police, he wasn't clear on what all of this was and what it meant, and yet we're seeing this dramatic increase in them. So what is your position on it all?
Well, I think we need to basically rip up the current rules and stop the police wasting time on policing thought. I'm giving a speech in a couple of hours' time. In fact, in a conference hall right above your studio where I'm now sitting, I'm going to be giving a speech to police chiefs, and I'm going to be saying that they should stop wasting police time on policing thought. They should only be getting involved either where there is a real crime, a genuine crime that's been committed or suspected of being committed, or where the behaviour shows that criminality, there is a real risk of imminent criminality, and other than that, they should not be getting involved at all. They shouldn't be visiting people's houses. They shouldn't be bothering looking at tweets, all of that kind of stuff. Only where there's been a crime or there's a real risk of a crime about to be committed should they be getting involved. That is not what the current guidance says, so the current guidance, I think, needs to be rewritten to make that clear. There's plenty of crimes, for the real crimes, for the police to be concentrating on.
OK, policing the streets rather than tweets is your view. Thank you very much, Shadow Home Secretary.
Have a good speech.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Time 7:15. And now it's time for our poll of the day. Today we are asking, is Jeremy Clarkson right? Should the government back down on farmers' inheritance tax raids?
We'll have the live results for you this afternoon in Martin Daubney's show, but our own tally from the breakfast audience just after 9 o'clock. If you haven't voted already, you just need to go to gbnews.com/poll.
OK, let's have a look at some of the other stories coming into the newsroom on this Wednesday morning. The American embassy has temporarily closed in Kyiv after reports of a potential air attack on the Ukrainian capital. Yesterday, Vladimir Putin made his strongest suggestion yet that Russia could be ready to start a nuclear war with the threshold to use atomic weapons lowered.
The funeral of Liam Payne will take place today, with all 4 of his former One Direction bandmates expected to attend. The ceremony will be closed to the public, with family and friends paying their respects in a final farewell.
And tonight, a world-exclusive Donald Trump interview. Well, not actually Donald, his son Eric, speaking to us here on GB News.
Yes, our colleague Ben Leo has been to Aberdeen, speaking to the President-elect's offspring at Donald's golf course. We'll have a little preview for you here.
Tariffs are normally in response to something. My father's not a guy who just wants to tariff people just for fun, right? And so I think it really is going to ultimately depend on the actions of various countries. And if true, free and fair trade can be established, I think there's no one who would love it more than my father. Listen, I think my father generally likes free trade, but free trade has not been free, right? And so people like to hide behind the guise of the words free trade, but it's just the guise of cheap words. Again, it hasn't been free. And so as a country, we've been ripped off by everyone. The days of America being stupid are over. It won't happen. And so I think my father would love nothing better to have a great relationship with the UK. He adores this, this country. Hence the reason he's put hundreds of millions of dollars of his own money into building the greatest property on earth. There's no place in the world he'd rather have a great relationship with. I think he would love to see a great trade deal. I think he'd like to see a trade deal that reciprocated for both parties.
Does the behaviour of Labour activists, Labour MPs, would that stick in your father's mind when it comes to trade deals and tariffs?
Do I think that helps foreign relations? No, I don't think that helps foreign relations.
An interview, we have it for you exclusively, and Patrick Christie's will be on his show from 9 o'clock tonight with Ben interviewing Mr. Trump Jr. there.
Minus 11 degrees it was up in snowy Scotland last night, but 11 degrees in Cornwall. So what is it going to be like where you are today? Here's Aidan McGivern with your forecast.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, a very good morning to you. Welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. It's a cold start out there for all of us, with Arctic winds and some icy patches first thing, so watch out for those. But away from many wintry showers today, there'll be plenty of blue skies, beautiful weather despite the cold across much of the UK. However, with this northerly wind, it's areas that are exposed to the northerly where we'll continue to see showers during the day. So parts of North and Mid Wales, perhaps one or two spots in the southwest, the North Sea coast, the Irish Sea coast, and northern Scotland, where the snow will really build up, and in some places temperatures will stay below freezing all day, particularly where we've got lying snow. And with clear skies overnight, those temperatures will drop away very quickly once again. Expect for parts of central and northern Scotland temperatures to be at -10 or even lower in places, and we'll see further showers coming through for northern and western Scotland, parts of Northern Ireland into northwest England and West Wales. Whether those showers fall as rain, sleet or snow overnight, we're still likely to see some icy patches first thing Thursday, because under any clear skies we will see a widespread frost. So a chilly night to come, and for most it's a clear night, but we will see some cloud building in the south and southwest, and then this feature arriving into the southwest by the start of Thursday, bringing some milder air. So the far southwest seeing 5 or 6 Celsius first thing, but elsewhere we've got the cold still in place and widely a sharp frost to wake up to on Thursday. But the main cause for concern on Thursday is this area of weather across the south and southwest, perhaps fringing into South Wales, and that could bring an awkward mixture of rain, sleet and snow at lower levels, with perhaps some significant lying snow over higher parts such as Dartmoor, even the mountains of South Wales. Elsewhere we keep the crisp sunshine, but it stays very cold.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Jingle bells, and we can get all belly and full of gaiety as we are approaching Christmas Day.
Is that the technical term? All belly and full of gaiety.
Gaiety.
Yeah, that one was going to catch on inside Christmas cards
I'll tell
this
you
year.
what will catch on.
Okay.
25,000
Oh, yeah,
quid.
you're right.
25,000 quid in tax-free cash. And you get vouchers and you get all sorts of goody things.
Yeah, baubles with your face on.
Baubles. Lots of baubles. Lots of baubles. Have a go. Here's how you could win.
There's just 35 days until Christmas, and it's the final week to see how you could enjoy it on us. That's £20,025 in tax-free cash to make 2025 fantastic. £5,000 to spend on gifts for all of the family. £500 in vouchers to buy a slap-up Christmas lunch at your favourite supermarket. And finally, a GB News Christmas goodie bag. Plus, we're going to get it all to you in time for the big day. For another chance to win, call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2, or post your name and number to GB09 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on Friday. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Now, here's a question for you. When you're going out for a bite to eat, who goes with you? Does the other half go?
There's no way to talk about her.
Yes. Or does your dog go? And are you for the dog going? Are you against the dog going? Or does the establishment you visit put a ban on doggies?
Yeah, well, all sorts of restaurants are allowing them now, even posh ones like Gordon Ramsay. But then I think all his celebrity friends like Simon Cowell are obsessed with their dogs, aren't they? So it's the way of the world. Do you like a dog in your restaurant or not? We'll be debating it after this. See you in a sec.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss My Big Opinion. Mark meets and My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about?
Join me and my A-team of top pundits.
Chemistry tonight is electric.
As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now, how much do you love your dog?
I love my doggy. I love my doggy.
Do you love your dog literally more than anything? Possibly on a par with your children?
Yeah. It's like it's part of the family.
Yeah.
It has to be said. But do you love your dog enough to bring them to a restaurant, to bring them to a pretty formal surrounding, or do you think that it's best that dogs are kept away when you go out and about for a bite to eat?
Well, more and more of us are in favour of dining with our doggies. The number of restaurants welcoming pets has actually doubled, with even a few Michelin star establishments permitting it.
OK, but while we all love our pets, is this taking things too far? Are restaurants simply not the time or the place for dogs? Debating this, Laurie Turner, journalist Laurie Turner, who believes dogs should be allowed, and social commentator Isha Ali Khan, who believes they shouldn't. Laurie, first of all, tell me about your doggy and why you want to be there by its side.
Oh, well, you're talking to a dog lover. We have a Maltese that's the size of a guinea pig, and she's called Star, and she basically goes everywhere with us because, you know, there are two things. One is a practical issue. You can't, tie your dog outside the shop anymore because it'll get stolen. So where we go, she needs to go for safety. And also, it's a lovely social experience, I think. I mean, I'm talking to you from Whitstable in Kent, which is dog-friendly everywhere. All the restaurants allow dogs in.
Really?
Breakfast, lunch and dinner. Absolutely. And that's fantastic. I remember when I first had my children, finding I couldn't take a baby in a pram anywhere. I couldn't go into a restaurant. No babies, no babies. And we've gone past that one. And now the next one is we will have our dogs, because post-lockdown, lots of us have dogs. They're part of our families. It's a lovely social thing when you go and take your dog in to eat somewhere. People come and say hello. Children come and say, can I pat the dog? It's just a really nice, warm, it warms up a restaurant.
I agree with you, because it's just like introducing another member of your family there. Isha, do you have a dog?
I don't know. I've never had a dog, but I am a cat person. I have two right now, and they're always trying to get crash and show their faces on screen. But no, I can't. Honestly, I've been out, and I honestly can't understand why people would take their dogs out.
Would you bring your cat out? Or would the same rules apply to your cat? No.
Absolutely not, no.
Right.
And I mean, look, I've never owned a dog, but I have friends who've got dogs. I've got a lovely neighbour who's got a lovely dog. I have nothing against dogs. I think they're amazing. I can't begin to tell you the different breeds and sizes, but I do know that you do get big dogs. And Laurie's just mentioned she's got a gorgeous little dog. And it does depend on the size as well, because you're going out, you're trying to have a nice meal, and you've got a great big dog, and they are hard to control sometimes. I've seen people when I've been walking on the canal, and you know how dogs interact with other dogs as well, and the owners are constantly trying to pull them back and trying to control them. And I think, you know, I've got nothing against dogs, but when you're in a setting where you're serving food, where, you know, people are trying to have a nice quiet meal, maybe it's something they've looked forward to for a long time, and there's some dog barking, or there's a dog trying to run all over the place.
I'll just speak from personal experience, Aisha. I understand the argument you're coming out with, but I don't know if Laurie would agree with me or not, but I have never seen dogs make a fuss in an eating establishment, barking. I've never seen them misbehaving. I know my own dog, I would be very happy to bring her absolutely anywhere because she's better behaved than any child I've ever had.
Yeah, although I have a case study where my midwife, beautiful girl, had her lip stitched back on, and we had a long time to chat during my labour. She'd been in a restaurant in London, a pub, for having Sunday lunch. She was eating roast beef. Dog came in, she went to pat the dog, and the dog went for her lip. Now, we're seeing an increase in the number of restaurants allowing dogs in. We're also seeing a huge increase in the number of dog attacks, including fatal ones. And just because your dog is lovely doesn't mean that other people's dogs... We're seeing more and more badly behaved dogs.
You're not seeing it in restaurants. You're not seeing it in restaurants.
Not where you go, maybe.
Well, all right, if you've been eaten alive by a dog today... I just told you a case study of someone in London. Well, that's one. One. Right, Laurie, sorry.
I think two things there. One, I think that obviously it's well-behaved dogs, and two, it's about teaching people who perhaps don't know much about dogs. If you reach down to touch a dog without saying to the dog parent first, is the dog friendly, is the dog okay, then you might get yourself into trouble. So I think the person who reached down to that dog, I would wonder what had happened there. I think that, you know, most people, I think we used to be in a situation where you dressed up to go out to them. My parents put nice clothes on. It was a special treat. It was a really special occasion. And it was all very stuffy. Remember those kind of silver cloches that were taken off your meals? I think we've relaxed in all sorts of ways, and having your dog there is part of it. I went to stay in a hotel in Weston-super-Mare a couple of years ago for a holiday with the kids, and we took 2 dogs with us, and the dog stayed in the hotel room with you. It was a dog-friendly hotel. Then at breakfast, everybody came down and had breakfast, and the extra seat was for your dog. And it was the most fantastic holiday. The kids were thrilled. Again, it was really social. I think it's a really sad day if we go back to the thing where you only got to be, you go to a restaurant, you sit nicely and you behave a certain way, and you know, life happens around you, and it's the new experiences that make it exciting, particularly for children. I'm always sorry when I see parents say, oh, take that dog away, my child is afraid of dogs. Well, actually, maybe you need to help your child not be afraid of dogs, because actually they're a part of all of our life, particularly part of British culture, which I think is really fantastic. It brings out the best in people on the whole. I mean, XL bullies aside.
Yeah. Aisha?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the way you have socialized your dog. It's the kind of pattern and the behaviors that you help your dog with. And I do think that, you know, you'd never know how a dog is going to react. And Isabel, you've mentioned the spate of recent attacks where dogs have sadly attacked and they've killed people, and every single dog parent has said, we did not expect this, we had no idea our dog was going to behave or react in this way. And that kind of goes to the crux of the issue, doesn't it, where we really don't know how a dog is going to react in a public setting. And I've, like I said, my neighbour's got a gorgeous little dog, a little teacup Pomerian, I think they're called, barks a lot, but it's just incredibly cute. And there is a massive difference between small dogs and big dogs, and dogs that are kind of socialised into being violent, etc. So I do think that, I mean, you're going to a restaurant, it's not something that we do every time, every single day. And it's nice to have a little treat without having to worry about dogs, you know, in the way and so on. So I definitely would not be happy. But having said that, look, dogs are allowed everywhere. They're allowed in the local pub. They're allowed in shopping malls and so on, supermarkets, guide dogs especially. So nobody's saying no to the dogs. We're just saying no to the dogs in nice restaurants.
All right. Well, we'll let the jury decide at home. Larry Turner, Aisha Ali Khan, thank you both very much. I think Anthony Worrell-Thompson was probably right, that if you can have a solution where you've got one area where the dogs are, one area where there aren't, then everybody's happy.
I look forward to the day you can bring your pet to work.
No, there are lots of them in schools now, aren't there? So,
Are there?
Yeah. All the schools my kids have been at, they've been emotional support dogs.
Well, I think we should be normalising it to bring your pet to more and more places, and we'd all be better people for it.
I agree.
Coming up, Paul Coit, always worth a tickle and a rub on the tummy from him right after this.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Murray, the A941 is closed each way between Fogwart and Rothes because of snow. The M53 in Cheshire is closed northbound from junction 10 at Little Stanley to 7 at Overpool, where overnight roadworks have overrun. Also, the M6 in the West Midlands closed northbound from junction 7 to the A34 near Birmingham to 10, the Walsall and Wolverhampton turn, where overnight roadworks have overrun. There are long delays there with queues from junction 6 at Spaghetti Junction and on the M5 from junction 1 at West Bromwich. On the M5 in Gloucestershire, 2 lanes are closed southbound, a mile before junction 12, the Quetchley and Hardwick turn after an accident causing queues. On the M11 in Essex, the outside lanes closed southbound after an accident just after junction 7 at Harlow, causing 3 miles of queues. In London, the A20 is closed along Lewisham Way and New Cross after an accident, and Hollow Chapel sailings to and from the Isle of Wight are suspended between Southsea and Ryde because of a technical problem. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Jubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Paul Coit is here with all the latest, and you want to start with Pep Guardiola.
Yep, looks like he signed another year at Manchester City, which will make it 10 in all. There's all these problems with these 115 charges. The case is still going on, but it's all behind closed doors, so we don't really know what's happening.
Okay.
But we're still waiting. It's supposed to take 10 weeks, and we're getting on for that now. But anyway, as far as Pep's concerned, verbally agreed another season. We're expecting that confirmed in the next few days, but that will take him to the end of next season at Manchester City. So that's all we know so far. But he's going to stick around for a little bit longer.
Let's hope that's all he stays for.
I know.
I mean, he is the best manager in the world.
He is the best manager in the world. Yeah, there's no question about it. Rafa Nadal, one of the best in the world. He's no longer. He's decided that that's it. It's all done. It didn't really end the way Rafa Nadal wanted it to end. So he's playing in the against Netherlands in the Davis Cup. In the Davis Cup. Spain versus Netherlands. He lost to the world number 80, Botic van Zandschulp.
Eamonn's favourite.
Yeah, he is Eamon's favourite. You don't want to lose to someone called Van Schlup, do you? But that's the way it's gone. And it's kind of... There's also the argument whether he should have played, because the Davis Cup is very important to Spain. But the fact that he's really been brought into play as the big final farewell, I think it's more heart over head than
I think he should have, to be honest, retired a couple of years ago, dare I say, and then it would have ended how he wanted it to end. But it's the same with Andy Murray. It wasn't how he wanted it to end. But these guys never want to give up because it's just such a wonderful life for them. And
that's it. And so many sports people over the years I've spoken to, and they say it's their body tells them. And my goodness, Rafa Nadal has really been through it, and his body's told him this for some time. Whereas now it has got to the point where, he's had to step away. So it all ended all in tears. There was a lovely tweet from Roger Federer that said how much he loved him, and I'd read it to you, but we'd be here till next Thursday.
OK.
But it's very nice.
Tell me about these jockeys at Lingfield on Tuesday who have been banned for losing.
Yeah, 4 young jockeys. It was a 5-horse race, and this was at Lingfield, 2-mile handicap, so 5 runners, and a horse called Certain Style won at 28 to 1, which is very good odds. But what happened is that it went out early and started, and often you see that. See how far in front Certain Style is there, and there's all the others behind. And I think what had happened is that the other jockeys were thinking, it's 28 to 1. He'll slow down. It's like even in running, you see someone go out really fast and you think, well, we'll catch him. But it didn't happen because he got further and further in front. And interestingly, the speed of the race was not particularly quick anyway. So it wasn't like he flew out and then there's no way they were going to catch him. So they just left it too late. So the 4 losing jockeys have been suspended now for 10 races for not taking all reasonable measures to obtain the best placing. Because when people are betting money, they want to make sure that horse is doing as best as it possibly can, and so's the jockey. So it's like, well, you didn't try hard enough, and so you're going to be banned. It's a bit strong, isn't it?
It's a bit strong.
And they're all young as well. So they're all learning, but even so, they're all being banned.
Well, I think it all overlaps onto cheating, and you can't have it.
Yeah, that's what they're looking at. That is what they're looking at, and they absolutely can't have that. But it was, you've got to ride the horse to the best of your abilities.
Yes.
And if it seems that you haven't actually done it as well as you should have done, well, then you're going to get punished for it.
OK. Does Donald Trump dance?
Well, he does. We've seen it a couple of times. Well, dance. Yeah, in that sort of way. That's it. So athletes across America are all doing the Trump dance to celebrate goals and touchdowns. So they've done it in the NFL. Christian Pulisic. What do you want to see first? You want to see the Trump dance, or you want to see the version of it?
The tone.
Do you want to see the proper Trump dance? OK, let's see Trump in action. There we are. Here we go. Look at that. The phrase "what a mover" does spring to mind. There we are. Look at that. I don't know whether he could not spell YMCA, but that's the reason he was doing it that way. I'm not really sure. But anyway, let's now have a look at Christian Pulisic, who scored against Jamaica yesterday for the USA, and his version of the Trump dance. Now look carefully. You'll see him come running over. And here he comes. There it is. All across America. They're all doing it. They're all doing the Trump dance. And people in the NFL say, no, we are going to allow it. We're not going to ban it. What? It's a dance, for crying out loud. Why would you ban it? But that's the thing. That's what everybody's doing. So I don't know what's going to make it over here.
Your dance moves.
Could be. Could well be. What about your doggy? Would you bring your doggy to a restaurant?
I wouldn't. Only because I think Dudley would
because you're embarrassed about the dog?
No, I'm never embarrassed. Dudley's lovely, but he does... you were saying about, your dog, and mine would be woofing, barking.
No, mine wouldn't, no.
Anybody to lean over. So, yeah, he's a bit of a tricky character.
He's gobby, is he?
He is a little bit gobby. Yeah, that's it. I'd love to take Dudley to a restaurant. I love the idea, bringing your dogs. And when you see dogs sitting down there, Dudley would be...
We had a makeup artist, didn't we, who used to sneak her dog in and hide it under the desk in the makeup office. Not here.
I love that.
And actually, that dog came to nightclubs with us. We had quite the time.
Really?
Yeah. Do you remember that?
Went to nightclubs?
Yeah.
Susie, I don't even remember seeing it, so there we are. That's what I do.
Is that why you saw Eamonn do the dance that we saw the Trump thing into the nightclub with the dog?
Would it be illegal or against company policy if we brought a dog in here?
Don't know, pass. I don't think it's illegal, but it might be against company policy. But like I said, lots of schools do it now. They have to be particular. They have to pass lots of assessments to be very calm and...
You see, yeah, I would love a pet. I think people bringing pets, I think that's very, very
an
good.
emotional support dog.
People bringing children in, oh, goodness sake.
children, goldfish, all those different things.
All those different
things. But a dog,
fine.
I love a dog in an office.
Yeah.
And everybody's always drawn to it's great to see
You
a
will
dog.
never get love like it, unconditional love like it. That's the big thing that I've learned in life. Anyway, we'll love you and leave you. Thank you,
You know
20
have
past
my
8.
unconditional
Thank you.
love, don't you?
Rennie Hunderkamp, Norman Baker, they've got the papers talking about those next.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Britain's Newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
A Tesco store on a Scottish island has defied locals by ignoring pleas to stay closed on Sundays.
Tesco's has said that no member of staff in Stornoway would be forced to work on a Sunday and that it had received a significant amount of positive reaction to its plans.
Well, let's talk now to the Minister of the Reformed Presbyterian Church, Reverend Kenneth Stewart. Good morning to you, Reverend Stewart. You're trying to keep Sunday special, and if Tesco are going to open up, that means it won't be quite as special for you.
Well, yes, good morning, and thanks for having me on. Yes, Tesco, for some reason, they claim it's not economic advantage, but for some reason they've decided to go against hundreds of years of tradition on this island and the deeply held religious convictions of many, many people, including, of course, their own customers who are really grieved by this decision. We come obviously from the standpoint that a day of rest is effectively mandatory. It's a human right, along with the other 10 commandments which have undergirded our moral and legal fabric in society. It actually enshrines the human right to a day of rest. And of course, in the UK, that's been eroded for many, many years. Incidentally, it's still far more respected on the continent. But for us here, the Sabbath or the day of rest has been very, very important. It's not just what we do, it's who we are. And for some reason, Tesco have decided just to go against that.
And Reverend Stewart, we were actually talking about this earlier, how in European countries, I mean, even in France, which is a secular country, still very few shops will open on a Sunday.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Ellie Costello, and thank you so much for joining us here on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Norman Baker, Rennie Hunderkamp, and the stories that are getting people talking this morning. That's what we're going to debate now. Norman, these missiles being deployed in Ukraine and missiles already deployed in Russia. What is the situation?
Well, I mean, clearly, with Donald Trump coming to the White House, Biden decided he wants to give the Ukrainians what they've been asking for some time, which is missiles to fire directly, long-range missiles into Russia, and also he's changed the policy on landmines. I think the interesting response from Putin is to lower the threshold, he says, for use of nuclear weapons and to open up the possibility, he says, he may be bluffing, of course, that he may use nuclear weapons against conventional weapons, which, of course, would be a significant change in Russian policy. But having said that, I mean, they've lost literally hundreds of thousands of soldiers, the Russians. They have to bring in North Koreans to help them. They haven't got the capacity. They've been very badly hit in the economy, as a matter of fact, in Russia. And it may be that he does feel he has to use nuclear weapons at some point in the future. I wouldn't rule it out.
I think that the argument that people keep saying that it's sabre-rattling, he says this sort of thing all the time, gives me no comfort.
No.
Just because he hasn't done it yet doesn't mean he won't. The fact that the American embassy in Kyiv has been temporarily closed this morning based on specific intelligence is concerning. And in the last few seconds, Ukraine have announced that they've just successfully struck Russia's command post within the Russian territory, presumably with these American missiles. Things are getting serious. And we know that Putin is a thin-skinned person.
Yeah.
You know, should people be ordering iodine tablets? I've been hearing anecdotally of people who have.
Well, I mean, I find it absolutely staggering that we have a new government coming in America. And in the last... you OK, Eamonn?
Yeah,
in the last 8 weeks of that government now, they've decided to ramp up this war, because that is exactly what they're doing. They are ramping it up when Trump has said he will try and end it. Now, I know people don't like the way that he might end it because it will be a negotiation, but surely no war is better than war right now, where there doesn't seem to be an end.
Well, except if it sets a precedent that appeasement is acceptable and you can invade a sovereign country and be ceded territory if you're a bully.
True.
I mean, that's a very alarming...
But we allowed him to do that in 2014 when we allowed him
he plays a long game, absolutely.
Yeah.
But you're right. Do you think that this speeding up or change in tack from America is based on Trump trying to get Ukraine into the strongest possible position ahead of Trump taking over?
Yes.
Or is this, as they claim, about North Korean soldiers?
No, I think it's about both of them, actually, to be honest with you. But I do also think that it was important to resist Putin, and I've supported the efforts they've made to try and make sure Ukraine is not taken over by Russia, which is what Putin wants to do. And I think it's a very dangerous precedent if he wins. Very dangerous, because next will be Moldova, then it'll be the Baltic states and Georgia. You know, he won't stop. I mean, Putin's mindset is to recreate the Soviet Union. Let's be quite clear about that.
OK, so that is one view, which I don't agree with. I don't think he does want all of Ukraine. I think he wanted that Donbass and that whole region down there. I think that he doesn't have, right now, the manpower to invade anywhere else in the world. And for me, the most chilling thing that Biden has done today is to agree to use anti-personnel mines. We have seen the long-lasting legacy of these, with children maimed years after they've ever been deployed. Now, I know they say that these are less long persisting, but they don't say how long they persist for. And I think that, for me, is the most chilling thing that they've done today.
OK, let's move on and talk about now, Norman. A lot of people who watch us from the northern part of England, particularly in the northwest, will know how bad and how unreliable their train service is. There is talk in the Eye today that this may be being put right.
Well, I don't know about that, but in Northern is run by the government, let's be quite clear. It's one of these franchises that's directly run. So the idea that nationalisation is going to solve that matter is not true. I mean, there's just been a new fresh pay offer at Northern train drivers and the conductors, and the thing's out of control. The cancellation rate on Northern is shocking, actually. I mean, but you have to wonder what Northern's been doing all these years, because also in the Eye, there's the fact that rail operator Northern has been found to be still using fax machines to communicate with employees. Fax machines. I mean, I didn't think that these still existed, fax machines.
Well, also to communicate with their employees.
Yes.
Employees have fax machines.
maybe the union officers do. I mean, but this is I mean, I have to say, back in my time in opposition, I'm going back 15 years now, I used to sometimes fax ministers. Why? Because when you fax a minister, there's a little machine in the corner that no one ever uses, and suddenly it makes a noise. And the civil servants notice, what's that over there? And you get your letter read immediately.
And then they read it and they say, oh no, that doesn't agree with our policy, and they put it in the bin.
But that was 15 years ago. I mean, they're still using fax machines now.
Now, this, the cost of the COVID inquiry, £208 million, they're saying. And that would be enough to do what?
So that would be enough, the total spend on the COVID inquiry, to employ 6,000 new doctors for their first year of work, which we would obviously desperately need. This is costing £150,000 a day, most of that going to lawyers who are just rubbing their hands together in glee. It isn't actually looking, from what I've seen, and I've spent a lot of time on this, they're not looking at actually the semantics of who died, why they died, what the virus did. They're just looking at, should we have locked down harder, faster, you know, and for longer? And that's going to be the
and also they're not looking at the impact on children, who we know is disproportionately negatively impacted on it all. A waste of money, Norman?
Certainly, I think it's right to look at what happened in the whole COVID process, just to see what lessons could be learned. But it's a matter of degree, isn't it? I mean, it's been going on for a long time. It's costing a lot of money, as Rennie says. There's no end to it. And the point is, once the inquiry is finished and reported, I mean, it's ancient history.
Well, there'll be another inquiry, because this one will not get to the nuts and bolts of the damage that we did. This was the most expensive mistake we have ever made in our country's financial history. Sweden have had their inquiry, it's finished, and they've enacted the results.
Okay. Guys, I'm afraid you're finished until the next time we let you out of the cages again. And we look forward to seeing you at about 8:30.
It is cold and frosty out there. Aidan McGivern has a full forecast, because there's quite a variety in the temperatures out there. Here are all the details.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, a very good morning to you. Welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. It's a cold start out there for all of us, with Arctic winds and some icy patches first thing, so watch out for those. But away from many wintry showers today, there'll be plenty of blue skies, beautiful weather despite the cold across much of the UK. However, with this northerly wind, it's areas that are exposed to the northerly where we'll continue to see showers during the day. So parts of North and Mid Wales, perhaps one or two spots in the southwest, the North Sea coast, the Irish Sea coast, and northern Scotland, where the snow will really build up, and in some places temperatures will stay below freezing all day, particularly where we've got lying snow. And with clear skies overnight, those temperatures will drop away very quickly once again. Expect for parts of central and northern Scotland temperatures to be at -10 or even lower in places, and we'll see further showers coming through for northern and western Scotland, parts of Northern Ireland into northwest England and West Wales. Whether those showers fall as rain, sleet or snow overnight, we're still likely to see some icy patches first thing Thursday, because under any clear skies we will see a widespread frost. So a chilly night to come, and for most it's a clear night, but we will see some cloud building in the south and southwest, and then this feature arriving into the southwest by the start of Thursday, bringing some milder air. So the far southwest seeing 5 or 6 Celsius first thing, but elsewhere we've got the cold still in place and widely a sharp frost to wake up to on Thursday. But the main cause for concern on Thursday is this area of weather across the south and southwest, perhaps fringing into South Wales, and that could bring an awkward mixture of rain, sleet and snow at lower levels, with perhaps some significant lying snow over higher parts such as Dartmoor, even the mountains of South Wales. Elsewhere we keep the crisp sunshine, but it stays very cold.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In South Ayrshire, the A77 is closed each way along Bickerton Street in Girvan because of a fire. In Greater Manchester, the A673 is closed eastbound along Bury New Road in Bolton after an accident. On the M6 in Cheshire, there's a lane closed southbound for emergency repairs between junctions 21 and 20 towards the M56, causing queues. On the M6 in the West Midlands, there are long northbound delays from junction 5 up to 7 near Birmingham, where overnight roadworks overran earlier. The M4 in Newport is partly blocked westbound by an accident between junctions 27 and 28 from High Cross to Tredegar Park, with queues from junction 26 at Malpas Road. On the M11 in Essex, there's a lane closed southbound just after junction 7 at Harlow after an accident, with queues from junction 7A north of Harlow. And hover travel sailings to and from the Isle of Wight between Ryde and Southsea are suspended because of a technical problem. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
This is the final week to grab your chance to win Christmas on Us this year. There's £20,025 in tax-free cash. There's £5,000 to spend on gifts for all the family. There's £500 to spend in your favourite supermarket. And a festively themed GB News goodie bag. We'll get it all to you in time for the big day. For another chance to win, call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2, or post your name and number to GB09 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 22nd of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good morning to you. The Prime Minister triggers a fresh BBC row as he insists the BBC backs Labour's inheritance tax plans.
With all the allowances in place, to pass it on to a child, it's a £3 million threshold. And all of you can check out what that means in terms of the impact. I think the BBC has already done it.
Over 10,000 people took to the streets to support rural communities, and Jeremy Clarkson rallying the crowds.
Labour's budget backlash doesn't stop there. The government admitting 100,000 extra pensioners could be in poverty because of the winter fuel payment cuts.
Inflation rises to 2.3%, up from 1.7%, in another blow to Labour's budget. The Shadow Home Secretary, Chris Philp, reacted to the breaking news earlier.
It's a huge increase, and I think it's caused by the inflation-busting pay rises that Labour has been handing out to their trade union paymasters.
And winter comes early as swathes of the country wake up to snow. How long will it last?
And in sport this morning, Wales beat Iceland 4-1. Great Britain lose to Slovakia in the semi-final of the Billie Jean King Cup. And also in I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, legendary boxer Barry McGuigan comes out as a Spurs fan.
Cold Arctic air has now swept south across the whole of the UK. But will we see any snow? And if so, where? I'll have the full details coming up soon in the forecast.
Well, it's a Wednesday morning, a cold Wednesday morning, but you're very welcome to have a warm welcome with us today. I'm Eamonn.
I'm Isabel Webster, and you're tuned into GB News Breakfast.
Well, Mr. Paul, I noticed you weren't that keen seeing what Dean was doing there yesterday in his mummy. And
yes.
You thought he was a bit wimpy there, really.
Well, yes. I don't want to be cynical. Actually, yes, I do. But do you think that the more the people react and make a fuss, because you know what agents are like, you know what showbiz is like, they'll get more screen time and they'll be on TV more because they'll be voted more and they'll want to be involved?
I think Dean genuinely was terrified.
You think so?
But I think you would be too. I'm just calling it. Like, whenever
you are so wrong,
Whenever
Isabel
I
Webster.
talk about things like mice, you freak out. I just think that are you brave with spiders?
Incredibly brave.
It wasn't dealing with any of that. He was just dealing with sand.
Okay, well, you'd be fine with sand, but it's so easy for you to sit there in your nice, cosy studio. I reckon you'd be squealing
You are
as
so
well.
wrong. I'll tell you what, spiders, I have no problem with
Really?
spiders.
It's
No.
just rodents.
Yeah, they're rodents. Yeah, rodent. Spider, I'm fine with
What would be
spider.
your weak spot, Eamonn?
Anything to do with water, because I can't swim.
Oh, well, they wouldn't do that to you then.
So, well, you don't know. You'd be
Also
in
the mouse.
in a tank.
The mouse.
Oh, the mouse! I forgot about the mouse.
The mouse that was in the Wellington boot.
Yes.
So if there was a water
mouse
mouse in water.
Yes.
I just don't like putting my hands into things when I can't see what's in there, and you know.
How often do you do that then, exactly?
No, I don't. But I mean, just the thought of it. You know, whether it's green ants or snakes or cockroaches, that's not for me.
Is it pain or creepy crawlies that you would be more worried about?
It's the not seeing what's in there. It's the psychology of not knowing. Like rodents in a coffin, grim, but you know what you're dealing with. But the unknown. Woo.
You'd be tough, though. Well, I think you'd be all right.
I don't know. I'm glad you think so. But
I do.
I'd probably be a complete wimp.
So I'm saying you'd be tough. You're saying I'd be a complete wuss in the whole situation.
Oh, it's probably the reverse.
I think it... Well, probably not.
OK.
OK. Well, over 10,000 people, young and old, took to the streets of London yesterday to protest against Rachel Reeves' inheritance tax raid on farmers, and you may well have been one of them.
Yeah, well, if Labour hoped that would be the end of it, they are sorely mistaken. Overnight, the Prime Minister raised a few eyebrows by suggesting that the BBC supports the government's analysis.
For a typical family wanting to pass on through the family, which is a typical case, completely understood, then with all the allowances in place, to pass it on to a child, it's a £3 million threshold. And all of you can check out what that means in terms of the impact. I think the BBC has already done it.
Well, let's get the latest on this with our political correspondent, Catherine Forster, as to what you make of what's going on and how things are developing the day after the day before.
Yes, good morning, Eamonn and Isabel. Well, farmers have gone back to, in many cases, fields covered in ice and snow today, haven't they? But they are standing very, very firm. There was a huge amount of anger here in Westminster yesterday, pretty much ground to a standstill. Farmers on tractors, mini farmers, the next generation on little wheeled tractors. Farmers very, very worried that they won't be able to pass their farms on to the next generation. It's not a normal business. It is a way of life. Now, they are not having any truck with the government's figures that say that only 500 farms per year will be affected. They think it's vastly, vastly more than that, and worth saying that the Department of the Environment's figures are at odds with the Treasury's figures. So it's all very murky indeed, but no sign of the farmers backing down. Tom Bradshaw, the National Farmers Union president, is talking about more action, possibly more protest, the possibility perhaps even of strikes. That, of course, would lead to food shortages. It is all on the table. The government say they are listening, but the Environment Secretary is basically saying, talk to your accountant. You know, there's all sorts of exemptions. There's £3 million and so on and so forth. A Treasury Minister last night even flagging the 7-year rule that allows people to pass on assets, and if they live for 7 years, they don't pay any inheritance tax on it. That's what Jeremy Clarkson has already said he's doing. But if the government thought that this was going to go away anytime soon, I think they're very, very much mistaken.
It's stupid talk, Catherine. Basically, yes, this is what we plan to charge you, but actually, this is how you could get out of it. And the idea that they keep saying, well, you know, the amount of people affected by this, it's not very much, don't worry about it. Well, then why do it? If it's not going to raise much money and it's not going to affect many people, why go to all the bother of instigating the legislation?
500 million a year. They are burning through huge amounts of political capital on this, aren't they? In a very similar way they did with the winter fuel allowance on pensioners, to raise, in the grand scheme of things, not very much money, but taking that money away from millions of pensioners. And a new development on that too, because the Department of Work and Pensions' own figures released yesterday, their impact assessment shows that means testing of the winter fuel allowance is going to push potentially another 100,000 pensioners into poverty. Bad news, particularly at a time where we hear today that inflation has risen up to 2.3% from 1.7%, largely because the fuel price cap has gone up and average bills now up £149 over the next year, something that pensioners could really do without when it is getting cold. The government, of course, will say, look, we have the triple lock, apply for pension credit, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, at the timing of that, Catherine, as well as the snow arrives yesterday, you couldn't write it. Thanks very much for your analysis this morning. Just a reminder, our poll of the day is all in relation to the farming issue. We're asking if you agree with Jeremy Clarkson. Should the government back down over this farmers' inheritance tax rate? We'll have the live results for you in Martin Daubney's show, our own breakfast tally just after 9. And if you haven't already cast your vote, you can do so at gbnews.com/poll.
OK. We've heard inflation rose by 2.3%. No, it didn't rise by 2.3%.
To 2.3%.
Yeah, right, to 2.3% in the 12 months to October, up from 1.7 in September.
Yeah, it's another blow to Labour's budget. Even the OBR describing it as inflationary, with that figure rising more than even many economists were expecting. Let's get the thoughts this morning of our reporter Jack Carson. More importantly, what do people in the Christmas market in Birmingham make of these figures out this morning? Hello to you.
Yeah, good morning to you both. Well, plenty of people on their way to work yet. This Christmas market not quite yet open this morning in Birmingham, but the initial reaction, the feeling on the ground here is frustration. People thought that inflation was coming down. They thought that maybe they could spend that little bit extra money on Christmas. Interestingly, if you look at the consumer confidence statistics around how much people are looking to spend on Christmas, back in October when that was measured in multiple surveys, and consumer confidence was going up, people looking to spend more this year on Christmas than they did last year when inflation obviously was a lot higher. But with inflation coming down to 1.7% in the 12 months to September but now going back up to 2.3%, people frustrated, people weary about whether they will be spending as much this Christmas. This Christmas market in Birmingham attracts hundreds of thousands of visitors every year. We'll be getting the reaction from them a little bit later on today as well. But the reason that this inflation has gone up is largely down to the increase in energy bills, on average around £149 last month. But if you look at it, it could have well been a lot worse if you get into the data, because this increase was actually offset by the decrease with things like live music, with theatre tickets and other parts of the economy, fuel prices dropping as well at the pump. And of course, Labour pointing out this morning that they're trying to solve this problem. They were pointing to their budget. Darren Jones, the Chief Secretary to the Treasury this morning, pointing to the fact they've frozen things like fuel duty. But him commenting this morning saying families across Britain are still struggling with the cost of living, saying we know there is more to do. But Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride saying that this announcement today is worrying. He says that the inflation is already running ahead, he says, of expectations, and official forecasts say these figures are not expected to improve.
Jack, thank you very much indeed. Let's go to the economist and businessman Justin Urquhart-Stewart with all of this. So, Justin, is Christmas going to be harder than we were expecting?
I'm afraid it is. When you see a price rise like that, it was higher than I thought it was going to be. And although there have been some elements coming down, as you were just hearing, actually you're also seeing some elements rising, certainly on the service side. I was expecting services to actually ease off a little bit. And also, as Catherine was telling you, a number of people now, because of the cost of the fuel cap going up, or pensioners now moving into poverty. 100,000. I mean, it's going to be a very hard winter for them. It was going to be hard anyway. Now it's going to make it a lot more difficult. So I'm afraid there's very little good news I can see in this at the moment. Then add to that, if you're going to have a hard winter, then the cost of your basic commodities will also rise. So I'm afraid it'd be interesting to see what the government's going to come up with on this one. They'll try and say longer term it'll be lower, but I'm afraid these figures point to higher inflation. And for a generation who can't remember what higher inflation was like, be wary. It's only gone up a little bit. It doesn't take much for it to catch fire from there.
People always link inflation as well with interest rates and the impact on whether or not there will be a cut. That's due in a month's time, a decision on whether or not there will be cuts to that and what that means for mortgages and people who are already paying through the nose on those.
Yes, so we've got an issue with mortgages because you've got certain fixed rate mortgages that are coming to an end. We're already seeing rises in rates, even though rates are coming down, because that's the way they're actually being constructed. However, you're also going to see an issue in terms of question whether the Bank of England will actually pull those rates down. Now, frankly, they could pull those rates down. There is this strange attitude that actually, if you have put up interest rates, it controls inflation. It doesn't directly always work like that. A lot of inflation can be imported in terms of fuel. A lot of inflation will come through things like supply of goods and such like. So what we're dealing now is probably a little bit more domestic inflation. There's certainly no reason for them to put up rates. But if I were them, especially if my lords and masters in the government were telling me to try and get the economy going, actually more reason to try and cut these rates. And make sure you try and get, particularly in terms of mortgages, if you could try and cut those longer-term mortgage rates, even better, because people had real pain with those last year.
OK.
Happy Christmas, Justin. Might be a poorer one, but have a happy one. Thank you for your analysis. Appreciate it.
Right, let's take a look at some of the other stories coming into the newsroom this morning. The US Embassy has temporarily closed in Kyiv after reports of a potential air attack on the Ukrainian capital. Yesterday, Vladimir Putin made his strongest suggestion yet that Russia could be ready to start a nuclear war, with the threshold to use atomic weapons being officially lowered. We will ask the government if there are concerns about the British Embassy in Kyiv just after 9 o'clock.
The funeral of singer Liam Payne will take place today, with all 4 of his former One Direction bandmates expected to attend. The ceremony will be closed to the public, with family and friends paying their respects in a final farewell.
Tonight, a world exclusive. Donald Trump's son, Eric, has been speaking to us here at GB News. Our colleague Ben Leo has been up to Aberdeen speaking to the president-elect's offspring at the world-famous golf course held by the families. Let's take a little sneak preview.
Tariffs are normally in response to something. My father's not a guy who just wants to tariff people just for fun, right? And so I think it really is going to ultimately depend on the actions of various countries. And if true free and fair trade can be established, I think there's no one who would love it more than my father. Listen, I think my father generally likes free trade, but free trade has not been free, right? And so people like to hide behind the guise of the words free trade, but it's just the guise of cheap words. Again, it hasn't been free. And so as a country, we've been ripped off by everyone. The days of America being stupid are over. It won't happen. And so I think my father would love nothing better to have a great relationship with the UK. He adores this, this country. Hence the reason he's put hundreds of millions of dollars of his own money into building the greatest property on earth. There's no place in the world he'd rather have a great relationship with. I think he would love to see a great trade deal. I think he'd like to see a trade deal that reciprocated for both parties.
Does the behaviour of Labour activists, Labour MPs, would that stick in your father's mind when it comes to trade deals and tariffs?
Do I think that helps foreign relations? No, I don't think that helps foreign relations.
So you can catch that interview just weeks after the election result in the USA. Patrick Christie's, it's on his show, 9 o'clock, only here on GB News.
Well, the country is in the midst of an Arctic blast. How badly will you be affected where you are? Aidan McGivern with your forecast.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, a very good morning to you. Welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. It's a cold start out there for all of us, with Arctic winds and some icy patches first thing, so watch out for those. But away from many wintry showers today, there'll be plenty of blue skies, beautiful weather despite the cold across much of the UK. However, with this northerly wind, it's areas that are exposed to the northerly where we'll continue to see showers during the day. So parts of North and Mid Wales, perhaps 1 or 2 spots in the southwest, the North Sea coast, the Irish Sea coast, and northern Scotland, where the snow will really build up, and in some places temperatures will stay below freezing all day, particularly where we've got lying snow. And with clear skies overnight, those temperatures will drop away very quickly once again. Expect For parts of central and northern Scotland, temperatures to be at -10 or even lower in places, and we'll see further showers coming through for northern and western Scotland, parts of Northern Ireland, into northwest England and West Wales. Whether those showers fall as rain, sleet or snow overnight, we're still likely to see some icy patches first thing Thursday, because under any clear skies we will see a widespread frost. So a chilly night to come, and for most it's a clear night, but we'll see some cloud building in the south and southwest, and then this feature arriving into the southwest by the start of Thursday, bringing some milder air, so the far southwest seeing 5 or 6 Celsius first thing, but elsewhere we've got the cold still in place and widely a sharp frost to wake up to on Thursday. But the main cause for concern on Thursday is this area of weather across the south and southwest, perhaps fringing into South Wales, and that could bring an awkward mixture of rain, sleet and snow at lower levels, with perhaps some significant lying snow over higher parts such as Dartmoor, even the mountains of South Wales. Elsewhere we keep the crisp sunshine, but it stays very cold.
We'll see a cold snap, which will quickly develop into a warm front. Boxed Boiler Repairs, sponsors of weather on GB News.
I have this little Christmas dream of that I wake up to 25 grand and 25 pounds on my pillow.
Well, all it will ever be is a dream for you, because you're not allowed to enter this competition.
Oh, yes,
but you at home can. £25,025 in cash could be yours, as could shopping vouchers and a GB News Christmas gift.
Here it is.
There's just 35 days until Christmas, and it's the final week to see how you could enjoy it on us. That's £20,025 in tax-free cash to make 2025 fantastic. £5,000 to spend on gifts for all of the family. £500 in vouchers to buy a slap-up Christmas lunch at your favourite supermarket. And finally, a GB News Christmas goodie bag. Plus, we're going to get it all to you in time for the big day. For another chance to win, call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2, or post your name and number to GB09 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on Friday. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Now, up next on the programme, a former Queen of the Jungle, talking all things jungly.
Yeah, Kerry Katona, your best mate. Up next.
Tubes & Co. Weekdays from 6 p.m.
This is a topic very close to my heart. I have become fully convinced that social media, smartphones are one of the primary causes of mental health problems in children and many other serious problems beside. Lots of governments are starting to talk about this, but the Australians are well ahead in their use of legislation. What do you think about this issue?
Well, I think you're right. I mean, I've got 3 young children, and I'm really concerned about... I mean, they're too young to be on social media, but I'm really concerned about what lies ahead for them. I'm not sure I support what Australia's doing, not because I don't think it's a good idea to ensure that age verification is right. I'm just not sure that the age 16 is appropriate. But that's progress. If we effectively, as I do, accept the point that we need some sort of control, then we can move to a proper debate about whether that's 16, 14, 13, whatever it may be. And of course, there are age restrictions on things like Facebook. I think from memory it is 13.
Yes, but it's a tick box.
But it's a tick box. So all you can do is you can just knock. If you're 11 years old, you can just predate your date of birth by 2 years, and you can get on. I think what Australia is proposing is interesting because it will stop young people, maybe without their parents' knowledge, short-circuiting the system, because they're going to be asking for proper age verification and ID. That's definitely something we should do in the UK because it's enforcing the existing law. Query, is 16 the right age, Miriam?
I completely agree with it. It's something I actually said should have been done before. And I think what is good about it is that for a long time, a lot of governments have been saying that the actual social media companies should take more responsibility, but they're not going to because it hurts their bottom line. The most voracious users are younger users. So they will pledge that, oh, I'll put the tick box in, but the kid is the one who's going to actually tick the box. So doing something like this is saying that, OK, we will put in legislation that damages your bottom line. And I think it will force the hand because they've said it's only 12 months and they will reevaluate it.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here is only on day 3, and one celebrity has already quit a trial.
Yes, a Northern Irishman, no less. Dean McCullough, Radio 1 presenter, became the first to say those infamous words.
I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. Queen of the Jungle didn't quit at any stage, and we can now talk to the winner of... Well, I'll let her tell you what year it was. Good morning, Kerry Queen Katona. What year
Good morning, my handsome little devil. I love you and I miss you and I can't believe I'm single and you've not waited for me, Eamonn.
Well,
what the hell has gone on?
If only you and I had been in that jungle together. What year?
I know.
Tell people what year.
It was 2004, almost 21 years ago.
Goodness
and I know
me.
what you're thinking. I don't look a day over.
Incredible, absolutely incredible. So what did you think of Dean last night and him having to say, I'm a celebrity, get me out of here?
What people don't understand, when you have a genuine fear, like... and the thing is, it was sand. Do you know what I mean? It was a bit of sand. We all go on the beach. But when you have a genuine fear of being claustrophobic and, you know, you're not being able to face that fear. I mean, I actually did say I'm a celebrity, get me out of here on one of my final trials when they wanted to put all these cockroaches on me. And when you're in that moment, it is so terrifying. But when you're sat on your sofa at home,
The public will vote to see you squealing again. You know, do agents egg you on to be a bit dramatic? And did your agent do anything like that?
Oh, God, no. Mine was so many years ago. I got paid pennies to do it. I didn't even know what the show was about when I did it. Absolutely not. I actually remember me and Razor Ruddock, and I said to Razor, I bet you it's a studio and we'll have to sign a confidentiality agreement. I was very, very, very wrong. It's very real. Absolutely not. I think that was a genuine fear. For me, my winner's Danny Jones. I think everyone's winner is Danny Jones.
I love him,
I love Alan. I absolutely adore Alan. I love Dean, GK Barrett. I know Colleen. I love Colleen. I just don't think her personality is going to be big enough to get her through it. Although we do want to hear lots more gossip about, you know, the trial and things like that. But my winner so far is definitely going to be Danny Jones, without a shadow of a doubt. He's gone for it.
And from the minute the show starts, he's out the starting blocks, isn't he? He's got a great attitude. He seems smiley. Yeah. He's very likeable.
He's lovely. I met Danny. My daughter actually did the voice with Danny. And he's a typical Northern person. What can I say? Us Northerners, we're the best, aren't we, Eamonn?
Yeah, well, indeed. And I'm further north than you, remember.
Exactly. You can't get more Northern than that, my chick.
So overall, who do you see as, you know, showing their colours that they could be the king or queen?
I think Danny's going to win. I'm still trying to get to know Talisa as well. She's quite guarded and quite caged. I think one of the first people to go. Now, I know Melvin really well, who's lovely. I think he's getting lost amongst it all. I love Melvin. I've worked with Melvin. I think he may be one of the first to go. I'm really surprised by Jane Moore and her age, by jumping out of that plane, which I thought was quite heroic. I mean, I don't think I'd have done it. Barry as well, I think he might get a little bit lost. I think it's down to the younger generation, but I do think there are more celebrities going in. It's literally missing your comforts of your home, missing my children for me, and it was the first day I look back. You know what? I would love to get that show, the series, and show my children because they've never seen it, and I still don't get why I won it. I was only 23. You know, it was a very long time ago. But wow, what an amazing adventure! If you ever get offered to do it because you'll have these wonderful memories that I will take to my grave.
Eamon's been offered it lots of times. He just won't accept.
Eamonn, get in there, love. We'll get in there together, me and you, love.
But I wouldn't see it as memorable dreams, nightmares. I would pay good
money to see a snake coil underneath your bed and watch you react. Wouldn't you?
Bite its head off.
Absolutely. This is why I love doing these reality shows, because you know, I'm a child of foster home, so for me to get into shows like this, I think, wow, what a great experience, what a great memory. I might not always complete it, but I've always given it a go. But I'm addicted to it this year. I'm absolutely loving it. I get a bit jealous. I get really jealous.
Yeah, no, I know.
I want to get back in there.
Do you think the thing that gets me is I would have to always remember, Kerry, that I'm there to win it or to do very well in it. Every time I see them when they get together, they're hugging each other and kissing each other and being lovely and nice to each other. But surely it works best when people aren't nice to each other, when there is rivalry between the contestants.
Yeah, that is always TV gold, without a shadow of a doubt. But what you have to remember, and this is the thing with these shows, a day in the jungle is like a month. So, thumbs up. A day in the jungle is like a month. So you don't know these people from Adam, and next thing you know, they are your bestest friend in the world. You create a bond. You're not going through with anybody else. And because, believe it or not, it's really boring in the jungle unless you get a trial, unless you get to go and get the dingo dollars. You're literally sat round doing nothing, and the days just drag on, and then the starvation kicks in, and then they try and mix things up. So a day in there. And the funny thing is as well, I've done lots of shows like this. You're like, stay in touch. You never do. You never do. But mind you, me and Katie Price are doing Panto this year in Northwich with the Wicked Sisters. So me and Katie did it 21 years ago.
Well, Kerry Katona, all we've got to say to you is you are a celebrity. Get yourself out of here. We're out of time this morning. Lovely talking to you, my friend.
God bless you both. Have a great day.
Goodbye.
Love you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Gosh,
Kerry
she loves
Katona.
you. Crikey.
What are you crikeying about?
She's just like, oh. She Jane, you Tarzan. You should just go to the jungle together. That'd be great. Right, what does that make Paul Coit?
I'd love to be in the jungle with Coit.
Would you?
I would. I think it'd be good
I think
company.
he'd be good value because he'd be scared of everything. Anyway, we'll find out from him what he thinks after this.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In the Highland, the A890 is impassable south of Strathcarronwell. Lorry jackknifed in the snow. On the M6 in Cheshire, there's a lane closed southbound for emergency repairs between junctions 21 and 20 towards the M56, causing long delays. On the M6 in the West Midlands, there are long northbound delays from junction 5 up to 7 near Birmingham after overnight roadworks overran earlier. On the M11 in Essex, there's a lane closed southbound just after junction 7 at Harlow after an accident with queues from junction 7A north of Harlow. On the M2 in Kent, eastbound exit at junction 3, the Chatham and Rochester turns closed after an accident. Also in Kent, the A249 is partly blocked where a lorry's broken down off junction 7 of the M20 near Maidstone, causing queues. And in Cornwall, the A30 is closed eastbound from the Warlegan turn-off to Jamaica Inn at Bolventor after an accident causing queues. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody
in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss My Big Opinion, Mark Meets, and My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Right, Paul, we've got a look at what happened yesterday, for instance. Now, what are you going to start with?
Nations League has come to an end. I think everybody's quite happy about it, although Wales...
Good win for Wales, good win.
Very good. I mean, Wales fought, Iceland won. They were 1-0 down. They were at home, but they got the win, which means that they've qualified top. And also, it's also thanks to Montenegro beating Turkey, which was a bit of a turn-up, which meant that Wales top their group, will now move up into the top group. But then... with the Nations League, it does help qualifying for the World Cup. I won't go into it because it all gets so complicated, but it does mean, as far as Northern Ireland are concerned, that could help them. So when we've got qualifying for the World Cup, which starts in March, if Northern Ireland didn't qualify through the normal qualifying, through what they did in the Nations League, we'll put them into a playoff.
Gotcha.
That sort of makes sense, but that's sort of how things are. Tennis in the Billie Jean King Cup. Great Britain, and I said yesterday, after beating Germany and after beating Canada, with Emma Raducanu as well, playing well, I bet we go and blow it against Slovakia, who we should have beaten.
You were the prophet of doom.
Was I? Was I the harbinger?
Do you know that
doom?
the word of the year has just been announced as manifest, and you just manifested that?
Do you think so?
I think so. We were doing fine.
Honestly, you're on my case today, Isabel.
Sorry, I'm
She's
so
sorry.
I'm
a wimp if it was I'm a celebrity. I'm manifesting bad things for tennis.
You're just bragging about us being knocked out.
No, anyway, Katie Boulter, she lost. Emma Raducanu won, but then in the doubles, they lost in the final one. I manifested nothing. I manifested
I'll stop
nothing.
speaking.
Let's talk about Rafa Nadal as well. He's finished now because... Spain lost in the Davis Cup. He lost his tie to the world number 80 as well. But you know what they did in France? Because he's a huge star in France by winning the French Open so many times. Have a look at this. This is alongside the Eiffel Tower. And look at that.
Oh, wow.
You see that? And it's kind of like this moving image that they put in Paris there to pay tribute to Rafael Nadal.
This is projected, is it?
It is projected. I don't know where it's projected. Is it? What, is it in the sky? Is it on something? I don't know.
I'm not sure. It might be projected onto the smoke.
I think you could be right. But look, see it moving as well. Look at that. Look at that. A big Rafa appears from nowhere next to the Eiffel Tower.
Yeah.
But anyway, his career is now at a professional end. 22 Grand Slams, unbelievable player, and he was paid tribute to as well by Roger Federer.
Well, that's our full attention on Rafa Nadal. What about the Denmark manager? Who is the Denmark manager?
Ryan Riemer.
Right.
Ryan Riemer, Denmark manager. Denmark drew with Serbia. So they have a press conference. It's like all managers. They always have a press conference. Everybody's asking questions. How long do you reckon the press conferences would go on. Yeah, I mean, you imagine there'd be quite a few questions, right, to the manager?
Yeah, so how long would a press conference be?
Yeah.
Oh, it'd be at least 20 minutes.
So he'd sit there, everybody would have different questions, usually really lame, aren't they?
Yeah.
This is... I have a look at this. I've got the whole press conference. This is the press conference, Brian Reamer.
The whole lot of it?
I've got the whole lot. How long you got? Brian Reamer then for Denmark. This is the press conference that happened after the game at Serbia. Have a look at this. Here we go.
Good evening and welcome to this press conference. We just go ahead with your questions, so please wait for the microphone and state the media that you represent and ask your questions for Brian. No questions? All right, thank you for tonight.
The manager?
That's him.
Why weren't there any questions?
That's it. I don't know. So, OK, state who you're with, what your question is, who's first. Anybody? No. OK.
That's a bit embarrassing,
that's it.
isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, a bit embarrassing for him.
That's about it with the sport then as well.
That's it, yeah.
Nothing else to ask.
A damn squib. That pretty much summed up the whole sport.
I'll manifest a better sports day for you for tomorrow.
You're
How
starting
about
again
that?
on me.
No,
Really?
I'm saying
You're saying the sport wasn't up to standard
no,
today.
you said there's not much sport about today, so I'm manifesting more sport for
And
you.
Pep Guardiola is signed for another year.
Yes, that's a cracking story.
Thanks, Paul. Appreciate it. See you again tomorrow. Still to come.
Renee Hunderkamp, Norman Baker with the papers. See you in a mo.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
I'm Christopher Hope. This is GB News, Britain's election channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Now we're joined now by Sophia Viraji, the co-founder of the Isabel Foundation, which was created due to the tragic passing of her 8-month-old daughter to leukemia. The foundation is doing some incredible work for children's cancer.
Yeah, some really incredible stuff. They've just launched a PhD even where they're funding young doctors to specialise in childhood cancer as, get this, I wasn't aware of this, it's one of the most underfunded areas in the NHS. So not many sectors choose to go down that route, unfortunately. The charity, the foundation, have donated over £1 million worth of equipment to hospitals as well, and we're delighted to welcome Sophia. You've turned a tragedy and grief into triumph, I guess, and something so inspiring. Just tell us about that. Do you recognise that in yourself and the work you're doing?
Yeah, I'm here to always honour my daughter and to always continue her name, her legacy, and to support all of these other children fighting against childhood cancer.
It was all over social media. I mean, you were at one point probably one of the most famous families in this country because of Azalea and Azalea's fight. When you look back now at that time, does it give you comfort that you had so many people behind you?
Absolutely. The community that we have got, the humanity that we've seen in the UK and all around the world, in fact, has really touched my heart, and that kindness, love and support has always been the backbone of carrying me through this, to give me hope, to give me belief, and it still inspires me and encourages me till today to continue to do that, to show that light, to show that courage and bravery.
GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Emily Carver. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're going through the papers in the company of René Hunderkamp and indeed Norman Baker. But before we get into all of that, I just want to play the government's reaction to the sharp rise in inflation figures we reported up. Well, let's have a listen to what the Chief Secretary to the Treasury, Darren Jones, has to say about it.
Just come out. Well, we know that cost of living is a continued problem for working families across the country, but it is good news that inflation is stable and close to target at 2% today.
Inflation has risen to 2.3%. The budget last month was going to drive growth and avoid inflation going up. Isn't this the opposite for what you had promised?
Well, we know that the cost of living continues to be a problem for working families across the country, but gone are the days when inflation was at 10, 11%, driving family bills through the roof. Inflation is stable, it's around target, and the key driver of the inflation statistics today is that expected increase in the energy price cap set by the regulator, Ofgem. But the good news is that inflation is stable, it's close to target, and that will be good for working families across the country.
What's your response to claims by the country's biggest retailers, backed by the governor of the Bank of England yesterday, that higher prices are certain and job losses are inevitable because of the budget?
Well, the budget fixed the foundations in this country. It turned the page on economic instability that we saw under the previous government. And I think businesses, investors and working people across the country will be happy that we have a government that takes economic stability properly and will not put us back into the chaos that we saw under Liz Truss and the Conservatives.
Okay. Oh, well, that was a dynamic...
Inflation is stable, Norman.
Stable? Well, it's gone up from 1.7% to 2.3% in a month. That doesn't seem very stable to me. But then I'm not an economist, but is he?
Yeah, and he's blaming that all on this price cap increase on October the 1st and doesn't seem to take any responsibility for what the OBR have called an inflationary budget, not least in relation to public sector pay rises.
Well, public sector pay rises, of course, are half the black hole the government identified comes from public sector pay rises for people like ASLEF and the RMT.
Well, in actual fact, the public sector pay rises represent the entire black hole as defined by the OBR, who said there was no £22 billion. All they could find was £9 billion of pressures. But they still come out repeating it. They were out yesterday repeating it despite the OBR.
Interesting.
Let's talk about social media, René, and a social media ban for teenagers if tech giants fail to act on abuse. Tell us more.
Yeah, so this is something that's happening in Australia. I think it is probably a tool to try and get the tech companies to crack down on what's going on. But I think as every day goes by, we're seeing more and more evidence that social media is the absolute driving cause of poor mental health, suicide amongst our children, ADHD rises, and there's very clear evidence, medical evidence, as to why children end up with ADHD after social media, because they're not getting their dopamine hits. And I do think it's time that we need to act on this. A schoolgirl yesterday died after she was bullied by her classmates who set up a social media page saying, "I hate Megan Evans." This is shocking, and we need to actually, as parents and adults, take responsibility for this and take it out of their hands.
Yeah, I hear stories about this all the time, anecdotally, about children being bullied in the most horrendous way that they can't escape from because it is at home with them as well. Why are they dragging their heels, really, on this? Because, you know, we could just get on with this and follow Australia's example. I know as a Liberal you're not going to be in favour of banning things, but if it's addictive, which medically we can see social media is designed to be, we have age restrictions on it like we do with alcohol and other addictive substances.
Well, yeah, to be fair, I mean, I'm in favour of protecting children. I'm in favour of a liberal approach for adults, which is a different thing altogether. But when you've got young people, you have to protect them. And I think part of the difficulty is the power of these companies like Google, Facebook and people, huge amount of money they got behind them, run from America. They're difficult to legislate against because they're not in this country. And it's difficult to physically get a handle on the technology which is there. So it's not as easy as perhaps it seems.
I feel, and I don't blame parents here, when I see a 2-year-old sitting in a restaurant watching something really that seems innocuous like Coco Melon, I don't blame the parents because they don't understand. I'm a doctor, I'm reading the data all day long. What people don't understand is that when you start that young with children, they become addicted to their constantly changing images in their brain, and their brain develops in a different way. So they need constant dopamine hits. We need a concerted effort to explain to parents why something that looks quite harmless isn't.
Yeah, and children themselves are saying that they wish they didn't have social media. Going through puberty on social media, can you imagine? It's hard enough as it is. Let's see what the government say about that when they're on just after 9 o'clock.
Well, how did so many of you get through the weather yesterday? So there was a bit of snow over the country, Norman, and I was thinking, when I was a child at school, I remember lots and lots of heavy snow days and whatever, but I never remember once being told not to go.
No, I mean, this is nonsense. 200 schools shut after coldest night this decade. This is a light flurry of snow within 50 miles, probably. I mean, honestly, I was in the Arctic Circle in Sweden, and I asked them, I said, what do you do about kids going to school? Yeah. Do you ever shut the schools? And he said, we shut them when they get to minus 48. That's what they told me. Minus 48. And over here it's minus 1 and everything shuts down. I mean, the other thing is kids like to play in snow. They do. They love it. And the idea, one of my daughters was at school, and they were told not to go out at break time because it was snow outside. That's when you want them to go out and enjoy themselves.
I have to credit my daughter's school, who yesterday, because of the snow, took them to the local park. And, you know, that's a credit. That's what they should be doing. They don't feel the cold. But I think it's not just about the children. We've probably got young teachers who are now not as resilient, who didn't come in yesterday because it was icy, you know, because it was dangerous. That's the problem.
And what happens to the economy? Because if kids are not able to go to school, then mum or dad has to wait at home with them rather than going to work.
Grandparents get the call and get leaned on even more. Renee, let's talk about this story in the Mirror. 23,000 young and homeless people could face a Christmas out on the streets, according to a youth charity.
I mean, this is shocking, isn't it? Actually, to be fair, this is slightly down on last year's figure that was 24,000. However, 23 young people sleeping on the streets across Christmas in England is absolutely shocking. But it's also shocking that it goes on for the entire year. And what struck me about this is that we are picking up migrants from boats and putting them in warm hotels, but we can't do the same for our young homeless people.
Isn't the argument that it's not so straightforward to solve the problem? Not talking about the migrant issue, but I think homelessness is understood to be very complex, often linked to drug addiction, and it's not as simple as offering them a hotel room.
We did it in COVID.
We did in COVID, that's quite right.
But they were almost sort of incarcerated in that situation.
We found, I think it's more to do, I think that is, obviously there are some people, it tends to be the older people who actually are more complex and don't want to go into hostels because they have pets and things like this. Younger people, sofa surf, sleep in shop doorways, I actually think they would welcome a room. It's complex.
I can't remember seeing more homelessness in my life than at the moment.
They don't have an automatic right to a council place if they are young and single. They don't, in the way that, say, a pensioner does or someone who's got particular health.
They have no chance of getting
No, they don't. And there's also people on the street who are ex-military, who've suffered some sort of PTSD or something, and they're on the streets as well. So there are people who should be helped, and they're not being helped.
OK. Well, some people who can't get a sleep, it isn't there for too long. The Star's reporting on a pensioner who's been hauled into court to take responsibility for his cockerel.
This is cock-a-doodle don't.
He's been dying.
I've been waiting to say that. Cock-a-doodle don't. This is this pensioner, yes, who's been fined £200 because his noisy pet cockerel subjected neighbours to £200.
Oh, right.
Who's been his pet cockerel has subjected neighbours to, inverted commas, torture, it says here, by waking them up as early as 3 a.m. So the cockerel appears to be waking up in the middle of the night, if this is true.
Last year he would have been able to pay that from his winter fuel allowance.
There is something lovely about hearing a cock-a-doodle-doo.
Yes.
But not in the summer, when the sun comes up really early. Yeah, you've had experience of that.
I have. We go on a holiday to the same place every year, and there is a lovely cockerel who seems to persist, and every single year we're woken up when we want to just lie in.
Yeah, and you just fantasise about coq au vin instead.
Do they cock-a-doodle-doo on the hour every 15 minutes?
Oh, no, every 15 seconds,
sunrise,
just continuously.
So the sun comes up and they start cock-a-doodle-doodling?
They do.
It's once a minute for an hour and a half, it says here, on this particular occasion. But, I mean, why is it 3 a.m? Because there's no sun at 3 a.m, even in the middle of summer, is there?
You're right, yeah, it's more like 4 a.m. But I do love the sound of a cock-a-doodle-doo, but not when it wakes me up.
Are we going to start banning animals now? Is that what we're going to do?
Probably, yeah.
Well, that's another story for another day. Norman, Rennie, thank you both very much indeed. We've got to leave it there. We say thank you and goodbye to you two.
Now, if you fancy a snow day, Aidan McGivern might have just the news for you. Here are all the details with the forecast.
We'll see a cold snap which will quickly develop into a warm front. Boxed Boiler Repairs, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, a very good morning to you. Welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. It's a cold start out there for all of us with Arctic winds and some icy patches first thing, so watch out for those. But away from many wintry showers today, there'll be plenty of blue skies, beautiful weather despite the cold across much of the UK. However, with this northerly wind, it's areas that are exposed to the northerly where we'll continue to see showers during the day. So parts of North and Mid Wales, perhaps one or two spots in the southwest, the North Sea coast, the Irish Sea coast and northern Scotland where the snow will really build up and in some places temperatures will stay below freezing all day, particularly where we've got lying snow. And with clear skies overnight, those temperatures will drop away very quickly once again. Expect for parts of central and northern Scotland, temperatures to be at -10 or even lower in places, and we'll see further showers coming through for northern and western Scotland, parts of Northern Ireland into northwest England and West Wales. Whether those showers fall as rain, sleet or snow overnight, we're still likely to see some icy patches first thing Thursday, because under any clear skies we will see a widespread frost. So a chilly night to come, and for most it's a clear night, but we will see some cloud building in the south and southwest, and then this feature arriving into the southwest by the start of Thursday, bringing some milder air, so the far southwest seeing 5 or 6 Celsius first thing, but elsewhere we've got the cold still in place and widely a sharp frost to wake up to on Thursday. But the main cause for concern on Thursday is this area of weather across the south and southwest, perhaps fringing into South Wales, and that could bring an awkward mixture of rain, sleet and snow at lower levels, with perhaps some significant lying snow over higher parts such as Dartmoor, even the mountains of South Wales. Elsewhere we keep the crisp sunshine, but it stays very cold.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In the Highland, the A890 is impassable south of Strathcarron after a lorry jackknifed in the snow. On the M6 in Cheshire, there's a lane closed southbound for emergency repairs between junctions 21 and 20 towards the M56 Lim interchange. There are long delays back to junction 23 at Haydock in Shropshire. The A41 is just passable southeast of Newport because of snow, but there are delays. On the M6 in the West Midlands, there are long northbound delays between junctions 5 and 7 near Birmingham after overnight roadworks overran earlier. On the M11 in Essex, there's a lane closed southbound just after junction 7 at Harlow after an accident, with queues from junction 7A north of Harlow. On the M2 in Kent, the eastbound exit at junction 3, the Chatham and Rochester turns closed because of an accident. In Cornwall, the A30 is closed eastbound from the Warleggan turn-off, with Jamaica in at Bolventor after an accident causing queues.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
This is the final week to grab your chance to win Christmas on Us this year. There's £20,025 in tax-free cash. There's £5,000 to spend on gifts for all the family. There's £500 to spend in your favourite supermarket. And a festively themed GB News goodie bag. We'll get it all to you in time for the big day. For another chance to win, call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2, or post your name and number to GB09 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 22nd of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Will, please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. Inflation rises to its highest in 6 months as backlash to Labour's budget rumbles on.
Up to 2.3%. That's an increase of more than 0.5% since last month. The Shadow Secretary, Chris Philp, had this to say.
It's a huge increase, and I think it's caused by the inflation-busting pay rises that Labour has been handing out to their trade union paymasters.
The Prime Minister has triggered a fresh BBC row as he's insisted the state broadcaster backs his government's inheritance tax raid on farmers.
With all the allowances in place, to pass it on to a child, it's a £3 million threshold. And all of you can check out what that means in terms of the impact. I think the BBC has already done it.
Labour's budget backlash doesn't stop there. The government admitting 100,000 extra pensioners could be in poverty thanks to the winter fuel payment cuts.
Snow is falling, winter's come early as swathes of the country are waking up to snow again, but how long will it last?
Cold Arctic air has now swept south across the whole of the UK, but will we see any snow? And if so, where? I'll have the full details coming up soon in the forecast.
On this Wednesday morning, a very good morning to you. Just after 9 o'clock, I'm Eamonn Holmes.
I'm Isabel Webster, and this is GB News Breakfast.
The farming protests yesterday, over 10,000 people, young and old, took to the streets of London to protest against Rachel Reeves' inheritance tax raid on farmers.
And if Labour hoped that their grief would end there, they're sorely mistaken. Overnight, the Prime Minister raised a few eyebrows by suggesting that the BBC has taken his side.
For a typical family wanting to pass on through the family, which is a typical case, completely understood, then with all the allowances in place, to pass it on to a child, it's a £3 million threshold. And all of you can check out what that means in terms of the impact. I think the BBC has already done it.
Well, let's get the latest on all this from our political correspondent, Catherine Forster, starting with those inflation figures. This is more bad news for the government, a huge jump in just the space of a month and the first increase in half a year. The OBR were right, weren't they? This is an inflationary budget.
Well, that is certainly what the Conservatives are saying. Mel Stride, the Shadow Chancellor, has said that Labour's budget will push up inflation and mortgage rates. The government, of course, taking a different view. Darren Jones of the Treasury saying the good news is that inflation is stable. Well, I'm not sure that it is stable. It's gone up from 1.7% over the last year, to 2.3%. That's quite a jump of 0.6%, and it is critically above the Bank of England's target of 2%. Now, it's fuelled largely by the fact that our energy bills are going up yet again. The price cap has gone up. It's an average of £149 more for our bills over the year. And of course, this comes at a time when it's got pretty cold out there. Snow over large parts of the country, really horrible conditions. And also at a time when the government's own figures yesterday revealed that 100,000 pensioners stand to end up in poverty because of the decision that the government made to restrict the winter fuel allowance. 50,000 more in the next year and another 50,000 potentially by the end of the decade. The government very keen to point out that the triple lock still exists and saying that they've written to people flagging to qualify, if you qualify for pension credit, to please fill in the form. Of course, that form includes something like 230 questions, so easier said than done.
So, Catherine, you were out there with the protesters yesterday. You saw what was going on. How would you have described the whole mood, and do you think this was a victory for the farmers?
They're very angry and incredibly upset and quite resolute in their determination to pursue this. And Jeremy Clarkson, I think, spoke for many of them, saying the government needs to back down. They need to do the big thing, admit they've made a mistake and back down. And the National Farmers Union president has said he rules nothing out, whether that be more protests or potentially strikes. The trouble is that the government seems to be digging in on the other side too. The government are still saying that they are sure of their figures from the Treasury, that only 500 farms a year will be affected. Worth saying, the Department of the Environment's figures are rather different to that. So a lot of confusion, really, but a lot of anger.
OK, Catherine, thank you very much. Well, let's pick up a number of those issues with the government. We're joined by the Secretary of State for Science, Innovation and Technology, Peter Carl. Good morning to you. Welcome to the programme. Thanks for braving the cold for us. Can we start with this bad news from the Office for National Statistics this morning? A sharp increase in the space of just a month in relation to inflation, and the highest it's been in 6 months. On your watch?
Well, that's right. I mean, the inflation figures have gone up. What we did during the budget, you saw, was take the hard decisions to fix the foundations of our economy so that we can get growth in there. But we also gave a pay rise to working people via the national living wage. So we want to make sure that the working people and everyone around our country can get through these difficult times in the short term, whilst we fix the foundations of our economy and make sure we get growth back into it, which is what people need into the long term. Because if we just carried on as we were under the previous administration, the challenges that we faced in an economy with high tax and low growth means that we can't get wages growing, we can't keep inflation down, and we can't get everybody enjoying the very best that the modern life in the 2020s offers. So we have taken the difficult decisions, we have fixed the foundations, and the rewards will come into the economy soon. But we are only 4 months into this economy, into this government.
Well, the Conservatives are saying that this is all down to the inflation-busting public sector pay rises, and they're not the only ones who believe that your actions have been inflationary. The Office for Budget Responsibility say that your budget was inflationary.
Well, what you saw before was unprecedented amounts of industrial action that was bringing our transport system to its knees, bringing our commerce and retail services to its knees because of the actions of that previous government. That was having an incredible negative impact on our economy as well, and indeed on inflation. What we've done is fixing the fundamentals of our economy so that we can get moving into the future. We're also investing into the infrastructure of the future, digital infrastructure, but also making sure that the infrastructure in terms of wages is improved into the future. So we need to make sure that the fundamentals of running our economy have got right. That's what we did with that budget, and the benefits of it will be brought to bear.
But you can't claim to be the party of business anymore, can you? Just yesterday, 70 large companies wrote a public letter just absolutely distraught and frustrated with this national insurance employer hike that you are bringing in. And this has been backed up now by the Governor of the Bank of England, saying that actually this and the living minimum wage will lead to job losses. These 17 companies were correct.
We have to see what unfolds, because the truth is that there was an alternative to the plan that we put forward. We are investing into the future of our country, including its infrastructure. The previous administration had no faith in the future. It was all about managing decline. We do not accept that decline is inevitable, which is why we took the measures that we did. They are difficult measures. We didn't come into government because we wanted to increase taxes or do some of the difficult decisions we've been forced to do. But we have done so in order to get the foundations of our country politically right so that we can build an economy that has growth and fairness built into it. We needed to make sure that where we did have to take those difficult decisions and raise taxes, we did so in as fair a way as possible, so working people were protected. And where we'd had to do difficult things which impacted, yes, the farmers, we did so in a way that recognised the special nature of farming to our economy and to our country, which is why they're paying half the amount of inheritance tax that other sectors have to do, that it's limited to only 500 estates out of over 200,000 farms. It goes over a threshold that for average will be 3 million, which is much more so than other sectors and people who create wealth in other sectors will have to pay, and they get interest-free period for 10 years afterwards.
Whose
this
figures
recognises
are you
the special
quoting?
nature of farming.
Forgive me, I mean, even your own departments can't agree on the numbers of farmers being affected. DEFRA disagrees with the Treasury in all of this, and the reason that farmers are given or haven't had to pay inheritance tax so far is because they are in a totally unique profession where their wages are very, very low, but they have huge assets, unlike most other professions. And this is going to put family farms out of business. Are you ignoring everybody that tried to drum this message into you yesterday?
We recognise that farming is special, and it still remains special. No other sector has the privileges that the farming community does. So, for example, having an upper threshold of up £3 million, which will be on average for most people who qualify for it, having 10 years interest-free period afterwards, having only paying the half what other sectors and wealth creators in other sectors have to pay. So these recognise the very special nature of farming. But listen, farmers need a great NHS as well. Farmers need a growing economy. Farmers need roads and infrastructure to be invested in. In order to do so, we have to raise the money to do it and to fix the fundamentals of not just our economy, our public services and our infrastructure, including transport. So it is fair that all parts of our society have to be playing their role in fixing our country.
It just
and yes, we recognise that farmers are very, very special, but they need to contribute as well.
It just baffles me that you're talking about transport there and the public sector and how they have to play their part. I didn't hear you asking train drivers to take a pay cut so that they could support the public sector, and yet farmers have to play their part. Anyway, I want to move on to pensioners, because there'll be lots of people listening this morning very upset by your own impact assessment of your own pernicious policy, as many people see it, in removing the winter fuel payment allowance. 100,000 pensioners will be in relative poverty by 2027 on a socialist government's watch.
Well, that's because those figures don't include the pension credit and other mitigating factors that we're putting into the system. We are urging every pensioner that is qualified, so your viewers I know will be concerned about these issues. We are urging and we are straining every sinew to make sure that every pensioner who qualifies for pension credit takes it up, because of course that preserves winter fuel allowance in those circumstances. Uptake on it has increased by 152% since we came to office. That means that
anyone earning with under £11,000 is eligible, but suddenly if you've got £12,000, you're considered to not be living in poverty. The threshold's far too low. It's no excuse for pushing 100,000 pensioners into poverty.
All of the mitigating factors need to be brought to bear. Look, we didn't come into office because we wanted to do these things. We have to fix the foundations of our broken country and economy. We inherited an economy with no growth in it and the highest taxation for 80 years, and we've got to change that dynamic. I do not accept that the alternative that we should have chosen was what we had before, which was managed decline. We have chosen to find ways, yes, to fix the foundations, but also to find ways to invest to get growth into the economy, into the future of our country, invest in our infrastructure and our public services so that we can get going. And we didn't just give a pay rise to public sector workers, we gave a pay rise to all working people because we raised the minimum wage as well. We all have to come together as a country. We have taken difficult decisions, but we've applied those difficult decisions using as much fairness as we possibly could. We will get through this period as a country, and it is better than having a government that's taking the difficult decisions to get through this issue rather than these challenging times, rather than to drag out these challenging times for another 14 years, which is what you would have had if you'd kept with the Tories.
Yeah. OK, Rishi Sunak would argue he had the fastest growing economy in the G7 when he handed over the keys to Downing Street, but I believe we're out of time. Do you want to do a very quick word before we let you go on social media, because I know you want to talk about a possible reprimand for the companies if they don't go far enough to protect young people?
Well, today I've issued a letter of strategic priorities, the first Secretary of State to use these powers. I am requiring Ofcom, the regulator, to make sure it uses all of the legal powers that it has to act assertively, to make sure it's acting responsibly and being as agile as possible in keeping people safe. They must make sure that social media products are made safe. So safety is before release of products, safety by design, in other words. And I'm also starting a feasibility study so that I can look at where the evidence exists on the impact of social media and smartphones on children and young people, so that I, into the future, can make policies that are based on evidence, not always the challenges I have at the moment, where I'm being asked to make strident policies where the evidence doesn't quite exist.
OK, thank you very much indeed. Peter Kyler, the Science and Technology Secretary. We'll leave it there.
Thank you.
Now it's time for our poll of the day. The question today is the television presenter Jeremy Clarkson right? Should the government back down on farmers' inheritance tax? So far, 99% of you think the government need to do just that. Just 1% agree with Labour's tough love approach. Final result with Martin Daubney at 3 o'clock today. And for all our latest polls, news and how to vote, you go to gbnews.com/poll.
OK, now let's cheer ourselves up, shall we? After all of that, it is the final week of our Christmas giveaway.
And we're on the countdown to the big day, £25,025 in tax-free cash, shopping vouchers and GB News Christmas gifts. How jolly. Have a go.
There's just 35 days until Christmas, and it's the final week to see how you could enjoy it on us. That's £20,025 in tax-free cash to make 2025 fantastic. £5,000 to spend on gifts for all of the family. £500 in vouchers to buy a slap-up Christmas lunch at your favourite supermarket. And finally, a GB News Christmas goodie bag. Plus, we're going to get it all to you in time for the big day. For another chance to win, call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Or post your name and number to GB09 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on Friday. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good luck, and still to come, Bev Turner, Andrew Pearce on what's happening on Britain's newsroom from 9:30. Talking to them after this.
I'm Andrew Pearce. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
The row over Prince Harry's US visa will be brought back into focus.
Earlier this year, Nigel Farage asked Donald Trump about this very issue. Let's take a listen.
No one knows the truth. What did he put on his American visa form?
If they know something about the drugs and if he lied, they'll have to take appropriate action.
Appropriate action? What could that mean?
Well, the fractured relationship between the president-elect and the royal couple, or ex-royal couple, I should say, began in 2020 when the Sussexes urged American voters to stay clear of Trump, urging them to reject hate speech, misinformation and online negativity.
OK, well, to break down this story for us, we're joined by royal commentator Richard Fitzwilliams. Richard, so what are the chances of Trump saying, you know what, Harry, time to get out of here?
I very strongly suspect that the new administration has other priorities, and also it wouldn't want the enormous amount of fuss. Can you just imagine it in hypothetical situations if it happened? I mean, we've seen Nigel Farage there get an answer from Donald Trump, which implied that this might be looked into, and it might.
The Americans say that if you have taken illegal drugs, you're not allowed immigration status. Prince Harry, in his book, said he'd taken illegal drugs, and there he is with American immigration status. I mean, how do the two things make sense? Either he lied in the book, or he lied to the US government.
I can't see that the future administration would want to be involved with problems with the British royal family, which obviously would occur if this happened.
Yeah, that's true. Richard Fitzwilliams, thank you very much, as ever.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Bev Turner. Thank you for joining us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Good to see you again. A world exclusive tonight here on GB News, where we have a sit-down interview with a son of Donald Trump. Eric, our colleague Ben Leo, has been in Aberdeen speaking to the president-elect's offspring at his famous golf course there.
Tariffs are normally in response to something. My father's not a guy who just wants to tariff people just for fun, right? And so I think it really is going to ultimately depend on the actions of various countries. And if true, free, and fair trade can be established, I think there's no one who would love it more than my father. Listen, I think my father generally likes free trade, but free trade has not been free, all right? And so people like to hide behind the guise of the words free trade, but it's just the guise of cheap words. Again, it hasn't been free. And so as a country, we've been ripped off by everyone. The days of America being stupid are over. It won't happen. And so I think my father would love nothing better to have a great relationship with the UK. He adores this, this country. Hence the reason he's put hundreds of millions of dollars of his own money into building the greatest property on earth. There's no place in the world he'd rather have a great relationship with. I think he would love to see a great trade deal. I think he'd like to see a trade deal that reciprocated for both parties.
Does the behaviour of Labour activists, Labour MPs, would that stick in your father's mind when it comes to trade deals and tariffs?
Do I think that helps foreign relations? No, I don't think that helps foreign relations.
Interview tonight, just a few weeks after Donald Trump won the election, with Patrick Christie, 9 o'clock, only here on GB News.
We've been asking you to send in snowy pictures, and I've just been looking on my personal Twitter. Some beautiful ones just come in from Aberdeenshire, where it's just a light dusting, and it's not. But here are some that have been coming into the GB News inbox. David Minnick from Shropshire. That's a pretty decent smattering of snow there, if that's a phrase, smattering of snow. Here is Jane Fleming. This is from Essex. Lovely. And here's her dog as well. He came along for the ride. Lovely stuff. I'm glad he's got his little snow jacket on as well. Looks rather
Very nice.
chilly.
Andrew and Bev here from 9:30. What have you got?
I know those snow pictures are lovely, but snow is hell, really, isn't it? If you're trying to get to school, get to work.
Very inconvenient.
It really is.
It's pretty, though, and we don't get it very often, so, let's enjoy it.
And I'm sorry, the Christmas decorations were when I came in this morning. I'm not OK with that. All this snow and Christmas.
Eamonn wished happy Christmas to one of our guests this morning.
Oh, Eamonn.
November the 20th.
Oh, Eamonn. Do you always go that early on Christmas?
Nice wish happy Christmas.
One of our guests, he said happy Christmas.
Oh, yeah.
Too soon.
Yeah, well,
Eamonn,
it was the
it
last
is
time I
too
was here
soon.
before Christmas.
Oh, fair.
We're going to be talking about the fallout from yesterday's farmers' protest. It's so nice for me to be back in the warm studio. It was absolutely freezing, but you do not talk about the cold when you're in a crowd of farmers.
No,
They know all about
because they do
cold.
it every day of the year.
They love it, though. Yeah.
They love it, but obviously they will be reflecting this morning. Will it make any difference? Will the government backpedal on this?
No, if our interview with the government is anything to judge by.
And so then what? What next? What are they going to do next? Are they going to turn up with their tractors on Westminster?
Yes.
Because that crowd is very determined.
And it will grow. And this comes the day of these extraordinary inflation figures. My God, it's gone up from 1.2 to 2.3. Extraordinary rise.
It's like one car crash after another. Yesterday, the winter fuel payments impact assessment has come through.
From the own government.
Governor of the Bank of England talking about job losses affecting everything.
100,000
But
people.
with the government minister today saying they were stable. These inflation figures are stable.
Right. Tell that to people when they see their shopping basket this month going up through. That's a huge rise.
We're going to be talking also about the fact that apparently Islamophobia has is rising.
Got to go.
Oh, I think we've got to go.
Yeah, they've heard
More
enough
on
from
that
you.
shortly. Thank you. We'll see you again soon. Andrew Bevan in a sec.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, a very good morning to you. Welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. It's a cold start out there for all of us with Arctic winds and some icy patches first thing, so watch out for those. But away from many wintry showers today, there'll be plenty of blue skies, beautiful weather despite the cold across much of the UK. However, with this northerly wind, it's areas that are exposed to the northerly where we'll continue to see showers during the day. So parts of North and Mid Wales, perhaps one or two spots in the southwest, the North Sea coast, the Irish Sea coast and northern Scotland where the snow will really build up and in some places temperatures will stay below freezing all day, particularly where we've got lying snow. And with clear skies overnight, those temperatures will drop away very quickly once again. Expect for parts of central and northern Scotland, temperatures to be at -10 or even lower in places. And we'll see further showers coming through for northern and western Scotland, parts of Northern Ireland, into northwest England and West Wales. Whether those showers fall as rain, sleet or snow overnight, we're still likely to see some icy patches first thing Thursday because under any clear skies, we will see a widespread frost. So a chilly night to come, and for most, it's a clear night, but we'll see some cloud building in the south and southwest, and then this feature arriving into the southwest by the start of Thursday, bringing some milder air, so the far southwest seeing 5 or 6 Celsius first thing, but elsewhere we've got the cold still in place and widely a sharp frost to wake up to on Thursday. But the main cause for concern on Thursday is this area of weather across the south and southwest, perhaps fringing into South Wales, and that could bring an awkward mixture of rain, sleet and snow at lower levels with perhaps some significant lying snow over higher parts such as Dartmoor, even the mountains of South Wales. Elsewhere we keep the crisp sunshine, but it stays very cold.
We can expect clear skies, leading to a light and warm day ahead. Lovely. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In the Highland, the A890 is closed in both directions because of a jackknifed lorry to the south of Strathcarron. In Murray, the A939 is closed each way between Cockbridge and Tomintoul because of snow. On the M62 in West Yorkshire, 2 lanes are closed westbound. There's a breakdown between junctions 28 and 27 from Tingley to Gildersome, causing delays. The M6 in Staffordshire is closed northbound from junction 14 north of Stafford to 15 at Stoke-on-Trent after a lorry caught fire with queues towards there. On the M54 in Shropshire, the westbound exit at junction 5 at Telford's closed after an accident. On the M1 in Hertfordshire, there's a lane closed northbound after an accident at junction 6 north of Watford, causing a queue of about a mile. And in Cornwall, the A30 is closed eastbound from the Orlegan turnoff to the A395 at Kennard's House after an accident.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
The BBC has been branded jaw-achingly stupid, not by me, by the way, over its decision to cast black and ethnic minority actors in the historical drama of Wharf Hall. Now, is this a forward-thinking idea or nonsense? And are we rewriting history? Henry, I mean, the Tudors were real-life people. They were pretty much white.
Well, some of these shows depart so much from historical context anyway that maybe it doesn't make any difference. But I think just generally, we've got a problem in this country with portraying history in its correct sense. You can't change history. And I think it's about the motivation. If the motivation is to sort of, to some sort of, to make a political point, then I think it's wrong.
What I find kind of tedious about people finding this instant jaw-droppingly stupid, Jesus was portrayed by somebody who's half Slovak and half Irish. Moses was portrayed in the Exodus by an Englishman. So, same with Anne Boleyn, was portrayed by Natalie Portman, who is Jewish. So if this is the one thing that's getting people angry, then there's something deeper within that rage, because I think Hollywood's been doing that, where people...
When you say something deeper, do you think there is a hidden racism and people are complaining about this?
Well, I think for some, maybe, yes. I can't speak for everybody because this news dropped today. I don't know why they are thinking that it's egregious. But there absolutely must be some underlying racism if this is the only one that you're upset about.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Morning, 9:30 on Wednesday, the 20th of November. This is live across the UK, Britain's newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner.
So, very good morning. The rural reaction to yesterday. Around 15,000 farmers came to Westminster to protest against the changes to inheritance tax. 4 farmers, as the Prime Minister claims that the BBC backs the tax raid.
With all the allowances in place, to pass it on to a child, it's a £3 million threshold. And all of you can check out what that means in terms of the impact. I think the BBC has already done it.
There's the BBC doing the government's work for it. Jeremy Clarkson received a hero's welcome at the protest, but he didn't take too kindly to questions from the corporation.
So it's not about you, it's not about your farm and the fact that you bought a farm to avoid inheritance tax.
Classic BBC there, classic.
And winter fuel payment poverty. The government admits that 100,000 pensioners will be pushed into poverty by 2026. Don't worry, Starmer says, OAPs are better off under Labour.
Children as young as 11 are carrying knives because they feel unsafe, as those with special educational needs are most at risk of serious youth violence.
And the big freeze is starting. Ice is the issue for much of the UK this morning as travel chaos is expected and more cold weather on the way.
And on the very day, the government's own risk assessment reveals that 100,000 pensioners will be dragged into poverty by scrapping the winter fuel allowance. The inflation figures come out. It's soared from 1.7% to 2.3%. That's your fuel bills soaring, food bills, and the rest.
And I remind you, we could have been in this situation having an election.
We could.
We could have, if